way too deep. And then you see somebody in law enforcement there as well trying to go through. I mean, not too many cars can survive this. I'd be surprised if they got through very well down there. But we're talking several feet of water in some areas.
I think that was, so we had the utility workers and whatnot, but I think that was actually them trying to get their rescue boat deployed. That's Fort Myers Beach right there that you're seeing, passable by boat. This is an area where so many people just lost everything in that Fort Myers Beach community. You couldn't even get on to Fort Myers Beach in the weeks that followed.
Sure, and that storm, there was so much wind associated with that storm too that, windows were blown out and all, and this storm, every hurricane is different, and this particular storm, it's a lot about storm surge, and storm surge, as we've talked about, kills more people, and that's the most deadly part of a hurricane, and so it's a real concerning thing, and those who are, in harm's way right now, and it hasn't even struck. The outer bands have, but the bulk of this at 140-mile-an-hour winds has not even struck up around Tallahassee, North Florida at this point.
Right, and it's west of us now, northwest of us, but still feeling all of those impacts in those waves. Chris Hurst is live for us in Venice right now. We want to check in with Chris. Chris, that is an area where you said you've shown us, right? We've already seen that water rising, and you've talked with people in their homes who are in that, and they say that the water's coming in.
Well, Chris is having a tough time hearing, and that's a common thing. Rain and microphones and earpieces don't always mix well. We will reconnect with him and bring him live shortly here. But as we saw, Chris is in an area where there's a lot of flooding, and people are going back into their homes where there are floodwaters. Some never left, but they're seeing floodwaters in their homes, and some are walking around. Some are just choosing to stay.
Right. And it's look, it's a hard decision to make, right? To leave your home and leave all of your possessions. Many people have made that choice, wisely, and others have chosen to stay. And we've heard from law enforcement saying that they have gotten some of those calls. Adure Chumba is live for us right now in St. Pete. Adure, you and Miguel are together. What are you all seeing right now in St. Pete?
Hi, the conditions here in St. Pete continuing to progressively deteriorate throughout the day. We have been on the streets since 2 p.m. with daylight, seeing the storm surge, the seawall over by the St. Petersburg Pier just breach that seawall there. And you could just see the water just kind of like swelling and gathering momentum, and then by the time it was dark, it was already breaching into the sidewalk into the park there at Vinoy Park. And at that point, we determined that it was no longer safe to be in that area, and we retreated to this parking deck here at the hotel in downtown St. Pete. Now, the winds again picking up. You can still, feel every now and then that gust kind of like pushes me like that, but then you can still hear that howling to give you a sense of the intensity. And like you said, we haven't really gotten the height of the hurricane. Now, reports from Pinellas EMS telling us around 100,000 people have now lost power. They are starting to do some water rescues, as well as we told you, the water's beginning to take over the streets and take over some homes. Access to those barrier islands been shut off since 6 p.m. today. So again, those people sheltering in place, needing to be rescued. Law enforcement now is saying that they are already carrying out some of those rescues. We're also getting reports of structure fires and transformer fires as well. So those are things to keep in mind as we go through the day. But of course, the biggest concern here is that storm surge of about 5 to 8 feet still being expected. That's the biggest concern, because that's going to elevate that flooding level that we're worried about.
For us in St. Pete, Adure, thank you. And that storm surge, it is the biggest thing, and that surge is what, the domino effect. We see all these fires, we see these accidents, and just so many more things. It's responsible for so much.
We want to take you out to I-4 again, some of the video that we have from earlier here. We talked about this particular accident out here, and we're getting more details about this. We will bring those to you shortly here. But again, a person was killed out on I-4. We have a few more details that we'll share with you. But let's go to Chris Hurst, who is live right now. He is to the south of us. He's been in the Venice area. Chris, are you seeing some changes there?
Well, the change is that the water continues to get deeper and deeper over Tamiami Trail. That's US 41 here in Venice that takes you down to Englewood and Port Charlotte. We still have cars that are trying to pass over this road, but not nearly as much as when we last talked to you about 20 minutes ago. We believe that they've, or at least are trying to shut down the road in both directions. Back where I can see where there's an interchange 441 with Venice. We've also seen some police cars that have been chasing after cars that have been trying to drive through the floodwater, and look like they were giving somebody a ticket right up here at the intersection. But while there are fewer cars, there still are some that are trying to pass through here the water. What this really means, though, folks, is that those areas that are in Zone A in Sarasota, Manatee County, the coastal areas, and we're right next to the Gulf. A lot of this water here coming from Donna Bay, Roberts Bay, that feeds into the Venice Inlet, is that these coastal areas are starting to get inundated. That couple, and Tim, why don't you just pan over? I know it's really not going to show anything, but at least you'll know that this car right here with a Purple Heart veteran license plate and a Purple Heart sticker and a Marine sticker here, man, I hope they're okay. It looks like they own these two homes that are just off camera. And when we saw this elderly couple get out of the car to try and survey some of the damage so far for these two homes that are just off my shoulder, it was about knee deep for both of them. Well, we saw them a couple of minutes ago as they were surveying the damage in one of these homes. It was already up to mid-thigh, right? So we're talking about, as Bobby has said, at least a 4-foot storm surge in parts of Sarasota, Manatee, Hillsborough, Pinellas. But that storm surge could get even higher as the tide goes up, and we are still, as I said, down here at least, seeing that actual change of direction from the east and the south to now the south and southwest. So we still have some people that, thankfully though, are not going through that floodwater. That is also something that's a little bit different than the last time we were talking to you, is that some people actually are wisely turning around and not driving through it. But I have to say, it is a little odd because we could see probably about 300 yards off camera, red and blue flickering police lights, and now we don't see any of that at all. In fact, we see somebody here, this isn't really great for your car either, but at least it's better than driving through brackish water that's caused from a Cat 4 hurricane. So people now taking the advice that we have, which is turn around, don't drown, but really the paramount advice, folks, is don't be out here at all if you don't have to. We're out here, as paid observers here to take a look at this stuff, make sure that the conditions are lining up with how the forecasts were and are doing so in a safe way. But we have seen some sparking now, electrical sparking near this water that is now almost about to cover the median two here of the Tamiami Trail. And of course, we know that some flooding issues could be farther up north on these barrier coastal islands, Siesta Key, Longboat Key, up into Anna Maria Island. We have not been able to survey that part of the damage in South Bay. But if Venice is any indication, and generally with these storms that come in through the Gulf, we are the leading edge for what you might be able to expect at points farther north. The storm surge is higher. The winds are still sustained about 50 miles an hour, gusts over 60, and we still have not reached the peak of the surge or the tide just yet, Courtney and Dave.
Chris, I'm concerned about this couple you mentioned. Is there anything we can do on our end here to make sure that they're okay? Is there something you can do on your end to make sure this couple's okay?
I mean, look, it would be possible for us to get into the water, but definitely not advisable. We are staying here. that is one of the things we kind of decided to do. Rather than try to roam out and find other areas, there still, I think, is an urgent demand for people to avoid downtown Venice and the Tamiami Trail. But we still can see into the home. They do have a lantern that they are using. If there are any visible signs of distress, obviously we will change and adapt and respond to that. But what it is I think a tale that we see all the time, is that some people really just want to disregard the advice that we put out there. And, you know, God love them, they're allowed to do that. They are American, but, you know, it is just not safe to do so. But we are going to keep tabs on them, Dave. And if we see any changes to the conditions, we'll adjust accordingly.
Just want to make sure that those folks need some help, that
You
we
made
at least
me
alert
nervous.
authorities.
I was like, no,
I'm
don't.
not asking you to
No,
swim
no,
across
no.
the water there to
Oh,
reach them, but maybe there's somebody out there who might be able to help them if they need help. But again, not advisable to be doing that.
And when we've talked, Bobby, not to put you on the spot over here, but when we've talked with you, you said the water's going to recede. There's going to be, I mean, and not, it's not going to take forever for that to go down. There's going to be time for you tomorrow to be able to go back to your community safely and figure out what's going to go on. It will be there. It will be there tomorrow, we hope.
All right, we want to go.
You got me?
Yeah, sorry.
I know
Yeah,
my
yeah.
mic was on, yes. And another thing about that is, this is a stressful time. It's anxiety
it's the
ridden when you're
anxiety.
leading up to the storm, right? Because you don't know, it's the unknown. And then afterwards, you basically end up, well, right now you're in the middle of it. You're seeing the video, you're seeing the pictures, you're worried about it. And then what's going to happen on the backside is seeing the damage, dealing with the damage. And the folks that live out there will be going out there. And I want to show you this while I'm here. Good, I'm glad we're here. They will be going out there. You know who else will be going out there is people that just want to go and check it out. And the people that live there, they don't want those people around, right? They prefer to have their place to themselves to kind of clean up. And there's going to be a lot of that going on. So we'll have film crews there, and we can shoot it. And then that way we don't have a ton of people heading down there to the beaches. And a lot of the places you got to have a placard, you got to have an ID or something like that anyways. So we talked about near record levels for this surge. Colleen put this together, and these are the records for these areas. Every one of these are broken. Clearwater had 6 feet of surge, is what we're seeing so far. That broke the Alder one by about 2 feet. That was from the No Name storm back in '93. East Bay area, 4, almost 5 feet. It still broke the record from last year. Port Manatee, look at that, almost a foot more. Old Port Tampa Bay, a foot more. And St. Pete, the old level, in 1985, that was Hurricane Helena. We've now done about half a foot more than that. And I think some of these could go perhaps another foot. The scenes I'm seeing right now, the water levels are still coming up. Looking at the gauges, these numbers are still coming up. And I think in the next couple of hours, we'll start to see that top off a little bit. But that means that these numbers here are going to go up, guys.
All right, we want to go to I-4 right now.
Yeah,
it's a video that
so
we got. And this
sad.
is really just a heartbreaking story that we see. We showed you this earlier, where what appears to be some sort of accident on the road. We didn't know exactly what happened. Turns out a sign fell onto a car, killing a person out there. We don't know exactly what happened. This video is reloading right now, but we don't know how that happened, if it was wind related. We just don't have enough information about it at this point, but it does underscore the danger of being out there on the roads right now. There are a lot of things that can happen, from wind to water and everything in between.
So many, I mean, there are so many dangers right now when we have hurricanes. And again, law enforcement over and over repeatedly saying, please do not be on the road. In that video, earlier when we were looking at that live picture and trying to figure out what may have happened, and again, the police response to that, if you looked beyond that, you could see that road sign. You're looking at video from the Howard Franklin
That is hard to believe.
from earlier
Yeah,
today, right?
that's from
earlier
earlier today. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, these cars just sort of bobbing in and out of water there. There's no doubt there was a good reason for shutting down the bridge right here. Look at it lapping up on the bridge. You remember the last storm we had around here, they had to shut it down for a while. And we should point out that the Howard Franklin Bridge is closed right now, the Gandy Bridge is closed, Courtney Campbell Causeway is closed, and the Sunshine Skyway closed. So really, any bridge out of Pinellas County, for the most part, is down right now and will not reopen until they believe it's safe.
Can
And
you
the
imagine
Bayside
driving
Bridge
through that?
is probably they're not one they're going to shut down, but at the south end of it by the airport is probably underwater.
Yeah. Unbelievable. And you did point out, Dave, during Debbie, we saw them. They shut down the Howard Franklin, and then that area, because it was damaged.
That's correct. Yeah.
By all
and you
of
can
the
see,
water crashing over.
How can this not damage the road to a certain extent? We know they've been doing a lot of construction out there. Hopefully the bridge is intact and they can get this open hopefully sometime tomorrow so people can go about their lives. But you see the force of nature right there between how high the water is there, the wind pushing it onto shore here. And this was before the big storm surge that we had.
So one of the things that we made the decision, right? Well, the county kind of made the decision. St. Pete made that decision for us, evacuating Zone A. Our station is on Gandy Boulevard in Zone A, and every single hurricane season, we have this right here in place. We're just near the Hard Rock off I-4 at an area where there's higher ground, safer facilities. And so we're set up here to move all of the operations. And that is where we are this evening, 10 Tampa Bay. I'm Courtney Robinson along with Dave Wagner if you're just now joining us. So we've moved. We do have a live picture available just to check in on what we're seeing in, this is Gandy Boulevard at Brighton Bay. So kind of in that area. And you can see water's on the roadway right there too.
Yeah, and Gandy Beach was pretty well covered
Underwater,
earlier today. That's not completely surprising, but Gandy Boulevard is not necessarily a place that fills with water. Our television station is just down the road here, and when I checked earlier, they said that they thought it was intact. We've got floodgates up, so hopefully those will hold. But it is concerning, and you rarely see the roads like that. I mean, look, just completely empty. Gandy Boulevard, very busy road. Howard Franklin, very busy. Courtney Campbell, busy. And of course, the Skyway Bridge, I mean, an exceptionally busy road. All of them without cars tonight.
But maybe a person walking in the middle of the road right
Probably
there.
so.
Yeah.
Well, that's a novelty for someone to be able to walk down Gandy Boulevard.
With no traffic.
Yeah, with no traffic at all. Yeah.
David Shealy is live for us in Tarpon Springs. David, we've seen the wind pick up and the rain. What are you seeing right now? What has changed, if anything?
So thankfully it has stopped raining right here in Tarpon Springs. The wind has slowed a bit, still windy, but it hasn't been at the high speeds that we were talking about maybe 20, 30 minutes ago. Ever since we had the power outage about 30 to 40 minutes ago, the lights have come back on and have stayed on. We're gonna try to drive around and see if we can find if there were some effects down the road from those high winds and the rain. But here where we are right now, it has gotten a lot better. Still windy, we still see some flashes in the sky, and that's why we're staying so close to the hotel, because again, if we see anything or hear anything that feels dangerous or seems dangerous, we're going to get back inside, because that's obviously the safest thing to do.
And David, were you able, before this, were you able to make your way down to the sponge docks? That's an area where we always see a lot of water coming up. Earlier today when you guys were around, were you able to get down into some of those areas, and did you already see the water kind of coming up?
So we were in the sponge docks earlier. We spoke to a man who worked on a boat, and they just had to tie the boat real tight because they didn't want the boat to float away. We did not see water spilling into the sidewalk or the street. Actually, the scene was a bit interesting because we saw groups of people walking along the street, on the sidewalk, just trying to take everything in. And we asked them, hey, how worried are you about this storm? And some of them said, I'm not worried too much, and they didn't really have that much concern, but they said if it did get dangerous, they would go inside. So we're going to see if we can go back and see if anything happened over there. But the businesses right there by the docks, they all had sandbags. They all had boards in front of their doors and windows. So all the businesses took precaution just in case anything got to an extreme level. We're going to go check that out, and we will report back on that for you guys.
David, be safe. Thank you very much. We have all of our crews. They're out. They're monitoring all of the conditions and sharing those with us, sharing those with you.
I want to take you to Boca Ciega Bay right now, and we'll show you a rescue that took place. This is from earlier today right here. and you see the Coast Guard out there, and obviously someone is down in that water, and they are working to get them out. You know, what happens with this rising water sometimes is it happens so quickly, and Bobby had talked about this, you know, how quickly that storm surge can move in, how quickly it can change. We've heard from our crew up in Crystal River, you know, they've a very kind of short amount of time to get out of the way. So this is something to keep in mind. Coast Guard, no doubt, busy. They can't go out in every condition, but they try very hard. You see them being hoisted onto that helicopter right there, that Coast Guard helicopter. What remarkable work they do in trying to protect people in the worst of conditions. You see just how choppy the water is down there. I'm sure it's very windy, but these people prepare for that. They train for this and do an amazing job. You know, we're very grateful for them.
Very, very grateful. And you know, you saw that boat that they were showing over there. You know, we talked about this earlier. There's a lot of people who live on boats in our communities, and we've unfortunately, you know, saw some tragedies happen with that during the
in Gulfport.
In Gulfport, So, you know, they're out. They're ready to make those rescues. You know, they want to. You know, they're trying to mitigate as much as they can before the storm, but they're there. You know.
Hannah Deneen is live for us right now. She's in Hernando Beach at this hour. Hannah, we are keeping watch on the storm surge. Is it changing there?
Well, Dave, you're talking about how quickly we can see this water rise, and I don't know if I've ever seen such a good example as this. You guys last checked in with me 30 minutes ago, where you could still see the lip of that side of the boat ramp here. That's now completely underwater. I want to say it's risen nearly a foot in the last 30 minutes. Now, where these black poles are here, the black and green poles behind these shrimp boats here, that area behind those poles is a dock where people can typically be walking. And Rob, I think you've got a good shot there showing just how underwater that dock is now. Now, high tide here on Hernando Beach, I misspoke earlier, it's actually closer to 11:30. So what we're seeing is high tide coupled with the storm pushing all of this water in. And this is the storm surge. It's here. It's pushing in. This is what people in all of the neighboring communities have been preparing for all week. We've been in those neighborhoods for the last several days. Just earlier today, I was in that neighborhood right next door to the boat ramp where there were nearly every house in there had some version of tarps and sandbags working to protect their house. They are ready to see this storm surge, and Courtney and Dave, it's here.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I guess my question is, have you been able to tell whether or not those measures that they took have actually helped? Because, you know, when you see this level of storm surge, it doesn't matter if you put up, you know, sandbags or tarps, whatever, that water often finds a way in.
Yeah, Dave, I spoke with a man earlier who lives in that neighborhood, and that's exactly what he told me. He said this might slow down the water, but it almost feels inevitable that that water will get into their house. He had actually redesigned the ground floor of his house after the last storm that impacted them. I believe it was a dahlia. And he said, I no longer have carpet in my ground floor. I'm not dealing with that again. We put down concrete, something that I'm going to be able to throw on some fans after these storms instead of having to redo my ground floor, because again, these storms and the impact that they have on their homes, they're becoming more routine. And again, he felt that the storm surge coming into his home, it was a matter of not if, but when.
Yeah, and you know, the sad thing about this is these people, you know, you look at insurance. Insurance will not cover everything that's damaged, often doesn't cover, you know, nearly as much as has been damaged. So these homeowners are faced, you know, with having to clean up, pay out of pocket for a lot of this stuff. And it takes time, it takes money, it's stressful. And these folks are, you know, going to be struggling for some time to come.
Yeah. And many on fixed incomes, because
Absolutely.
this is their retirement.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking from Sarasota, for the Tampa Bay region, right?
Yeah.
From Sarasota County all the way up to Citrus County, that so many in our coastal communities, again, in the last year, It's now the third time from a major storm system, but there's been flooding issues, throughout.
Right, and then you look at the cost of
Yeah.
insurance going up in this state and the struggle that homeowners face there.
Right.
It's getting very expensive to live, and certainly after these storms it becomes more expensive.
It does. I want to give you a look at Causeway Boulevard, Gulf Boulevard, Bel Air Beach. We've been kind of monitoring this. Oh yeah, you can see there were signs that you could see, and those are now submerged. This is an area where we've kind of just been checking in, and you can see it moving too, Dave. When we talk about, looking, we had another shot, right, of clear water looking above. It looks like a river, and you can see that right there, that water moving, pushing through and just getting deeper with that surge. A friend of mine sent me video from Sand Key, so not too far away, and the water was right there, intercoastal side, and that water was right there, like looking at their dock. We do have that video. Okay, let's see if we can show that. I mean, this is incredible. So this was this might have been about an hour ago, so deeper now, and you can see that right there, looking at the dock, pushing in. Again, this is on the intercoastal side. So look at that right there, so much water.
Yeah, we talk about moving water. A really good example of that is where Eric Glasser is right now. He's live along Tampa River Walk. Eric, when we last left you, the water was rising, the surge was taking place, and the water was moving as well.
Hi, Dave. Yeah, well, before, at our last location, we were along Ashley Drive, and I said that the Riverwalk had become the river. We moved over to the other side of that, on the south end now of where TGH would be along Bayshore Boulevard, and I can tell you that Bayshore has become the bay. I'm going to step out of the way, and I'm going to let you look at it. The whole reason really for just stopping at the location where we are right now is when we saw it for ourselves, I said other people need to see this. It's just that unusual. You can see that the water now has pushed high enough that it is coming over the banister. It has overtaken Bayshore Boulevard. In fact, those aren't just large puddles of water like we would normally see along this stretch of Bayshore in a bad storm. Those are waves. Those are 1 to 2 foot waves crashing on the north side of Bayshore Boulevard. So in the distance from where we are right now, just across the way, that's Tampa General Hospital. By the way, we have seen a lot of activity. I can tell you several ambulances, fire trucks, and a lot of other rescue vehicles moving into that area. Just from our vantage point, we could see it. But take a look at the water, the way that the surge that we were talking about when we could see the water pushing up over the Riverwalk. Now, again, we're on the south side of that. And look at the waves crashing onto what is just simply the sidewalk on the north side of Bayshore Boulevard. Not just impassable because of the amount of water, but you couldn't possibly drive anything through this because it's got wave action. The waves are crashing on Bayshore Boulevard as we speak, whipped up by the amount of wind that continues to seem to come right out of the south, blowing on, I can tell you, very, very windy out here now. We've probably seen the strongest gusts of wind that we've experienced all night. So I know that the storm has kind of moved north of the parallel that it would be with Tampa. But the wind that's whipping around it and the squalls that are following it, that tail effect, are absolutely whipping up the water and the wind in downtown Tampa. I continue to see blue light in the sky. Those transformers are blowing in the Tampa area. I imagine that there are people without electricity. Where we are, the street lights continue to be on. TGH has its own power, so even if the lights went out, they would still have power. By the way, I'm just going to stop for a second. You can see this is another one of those emergency vehicles pulling over the Davis Islands Bridge right now as we speak. So we've seen that, a course of that throughout the course of the evening. But this is it. This is the amount of water that we've seen. An enormous amount of water pushing up out of the bay onto Bayshore Boulevard in volumes that I personally have not seen. Again, we've seen rainstorms. I've been out here at times where it's impassable, up to your hip, as they say. And earlier today, we did sort of see that as the rush of water started to come in from the surge, but not with this sort of wind, not with this sort of push, not with the energy that is literally creating action along Bayshore Boulevard. Guys, I'm going to send it back to you.
Eric, thank you so much for those great visuals telling that story there. And I want to remind you, as you see what Eric's showing you out there, that water level is from a storm that was 100 miles offshore when it went by Tampa. The 15 to 20 foot surge is going to be up in here. There's a sheriff up in here that just said, if you know anybody that decided to stay, tell them to write their name and social security number on their arm with a Sharpie, because they retrieve their body afterwards. They think it's going to be that bad. That was the threat with Ian. And if you remember how we were all thinking a day before Ian made landfall, we thought it was hitting Tampa, right? It went down to Fort Myers instead. We just got record. Eric said himself, he hasn't seen surge like this that's setting records, right? It's been decades. We got to go back to 1921. That was probably worse. I don't think we have all the records for that because it was so long ago. But we got hit at Tarpon Springs in 1921, and that really did a number on us. It was a Cat 3 storm. If something like this had to hit us, take what you see out there right now and at least double it. At least. So here we are. We're setting records. We're going to go about 4 to 6, 4 to 7 foot amount of surge out there. We had 2 to 4 with the Dahlia, and we actually dodged a bullet, believe it or not. So these poor folks up here, about an hour and a half. Well, actually, it's getting a little bit closer than that right now. I think that's going to be less than an hour before it makes landfall. In fact, let me run over there right now because, yeah, I just kind of looked up. That was quick, Colleen. I didn't.
That outer eye wall is starting to move onto the coast now.
It's getting there right now. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I'm going to put a measuring tool in here. So the center, from the center of the eye, we're talking less than 30 miles from the center. And
the worst part, here you can drive on that one there. The worst part is going to be this area on the right side, right here. Horseshoe Beach area, and then up towards Perry, which is right about right there. They're getting the highest winds right here on this northeast quadrant and a little bit on the top. It's actually because they're moving 20 some miles an hour and the wind's blowing the opposite direction there. There's the center. You can see about 28 miles from land. It's going right up about there. Draw that one. And so that would put it less than an hour. That's probably about 30 miles or so. And it's moving 24. What's it still moving at now? I think it's 24 miles per hour.
Yeah,
so technically the center would be there in about an hour, but the business end of the thing is coming through right now, right? Now, Tallahassee. Colleen, if you don't mind, let's zoom this out just a little bit. I know a lot of parents got kids up there in Tallahassee, a lot of friends and family up there. Here they are. They will be on the back side of this, but they are going to get a good hurricane coming through there. All right, it's going to be northeast winds for them. They're getting east to northeast right now, but they're going to get a lot of wind. They're not going to get the 140 that you're seeing here on this thing, but there's going to be some winds well over 100 miles per hour, I think, in the Tallahassee area. And that's going to do a lot of damage there. So that's the issue. But this area right in here where Perry is and then down towards Cross City, they're getting it right now. Crystal River, some of the heaviest winds are pushing through the area right now. And so obviously some of the surge is really coming up. Even if we pan down just a little bit more towards the south, even in the Tampa Bay area, the water levels that we're seeing down here in the bay are still coming up. They're still coming up. I do think, though, we're about an hour or two away from them kind of cresting and then slowly going down just a little bit. But this thing is just about ready to make landfall here. Spotty rainfall now across the area. That trend will continue. Talking to some friends who are like, I think we did good. You know, most folks that live inland. And I look at these rain bands, and I think we are looking pretty good. They will be cutting back that tornado watch here soon, but I'm not letting go of that for a while. We do want to keep an eye on some of those cells, as we could have still a few spin-ups. The wind will stay onshore. It will be slowly coming down, but as Eric said, there's some gust. And if we could zoom out just a little bit and then hit that water vapor button if you get a chance, maybe go out a little bit more, because one of the concerns, we were talking earlier about some drier air getting in here. Yeah, we're going to have to go out a lot more, I guess, now. There you go. See that orange there? That is drier air, and it's going to be pulled in back on the back side of this. And the reason why I bring that up is because it's not enough to eat away at this, which normally it would. It's too late for that at this point. It will help eventually. But drier air is a little bit thicker, a little bit denser, and you can actually have winds just blowing even higher on the back side of this. Downburst winds. And so that's also playing a role in keeping our winds up and keeping them gusty for the next 3 hours or so, through about 1 to 2 in the morning. I think we've seen closer to some of the peak gusts that we're going to see, upper 70s to near 80. We might see a couple more, obviously along the immediate coast, but because we're getting a little bit of mix of this dry air in here eventually, that's going to keep some of those winds gusty as we go through the overnight hours. So the overall wind will be slowly coming down, but we're definitely keep some good gusts. And I tell you what, then it's going to be really interesting to see what this does up in the Panhandle, especially into Georgia, because we've got basically those hurricane warnings almost up to Atlanta at this point. Courtney, Dave, they're starting to see, you can see where we had this one watch earlier, how it got trimmed back. That'll be the case here later in the next couple of hours. We'll start to drop that off just a little bit.
You know, Bobby, as you're talking about that, Dave and I were over here. It's such a different storm because I think so often we've talked about the wind element, you know, the storm with the winds and the fact that this is just so much water. I don't remember, you know, and I know that this is a different level of water, but I don't remember a storm where we were like saying that, you know, there's just gonna be so much water. And don't worry, I mean, the wind, as we've seen it, yes, there have been trees down, but it hasn't been as damaging.
Yeah, all these hurricanes are different. They have their own kind of identity, and that's what makes it tough. And when people say they're not evacuating because they went through a hurricane, a category 2 or 3 or 4, and say I'm not evacuating because everything was fine. All these storms are different. Sometimes the storm surge, like from this particular storm, is the major problem. Sometimes it's the wind. So if you've survived one hurricane doesn't mean you're going to survive the next or the next.
And it's such a massive storm too, with that surge that we're seeing it, you know, really in so many of our communities and different levels. Citrus County is one of those areas where we are expecting, you know, our northernmost county in Tampa Bay, where we're really expecting the most surge, potentially 12 feet or more.
Yeah, as we go to the north, it gets more difficult, more challenging for folks up there. Aaron Parsegian is in Crystal River tonight, keeping an eye on things there. Aaron, are you seeing the surge taking place there? Are you seeing the water rise?
Well, Dave and Courtney, we've been keeping a close eye on things for the last several hours, and we are slowly starting to see the water rise here in Kings Bay. This is that area that we kind of watch for when you're talking about storm surge. This is where water will start splashing over here as that wind brings it in. It started off actually lower in the day, and now we're starting to slowly see it rise. So we're keeping a close eye on this seawall behind me, if you can see that while I'm putting the flashlight on it. We want to be really cautious if that water starts to come over that and come close to it. We were talking to some of the locals around here who've been through a storm or 2 or 3 even in the past year alone, who say once that water starts coming over the seawall, it's about 15 minutes before we have to get out of here and go to higher ground. That just gives you an idea of how quick that surge can happen. Obviously, people have been kind of waiting around all day, waiting to see that happen, and now we are slowly watching that water begin to rise as this wind continues to pick up and blow here in Crystal River. So that's something we're keeping a close eye on through the night, through the hours. And this is an area that's been inundated by storm surge and flooding before. It was last year, Hurricane Idalia brought 7 feet of storm surge going to homes, businesses all around Kings Bay and Crystal River here, causing a lot of damage. Some people are still recovering from today. So there's a lot of anxiety as we go through the night and it gets darker and darker, and they try to figure out just how much this water will be coming up into these neighborhoods.
Aaron, thanks very much. And I know you're going to take precautions out there. It's always a little nerve-wracking when you're covering these things because things can change quickly, and I'm glad you're keeping track of that out there. I'm Dave Wagner along with Courtney Robinson here. We are 10 Tampa Bay. Want to let you know we are among those who had to evacuate. Our studios are on the St. Pete side of the Gandy Bridge. When water is in danger of inundating the building, we have to leave. So we've moved to higher ground in Tampa. That's where we are right now. We're safe and sound. We hope you are too. We know there are some people out there in harm's way, and we know a lot of you did not anticipate that it would be this bad. Not everybody keeps up with, not everybody watches every single newscast or is on social media. Some people aren't completely aware, and I've discovered that just by talking to people and letting them know, hey, we got a hurricane coming. It's like, oh, really? Had no idea.
I told you, I mean, I was off on Monday and Tuesday, took personal days, and it was so interesting. People going, wait, there's a storm? I just realized that there's a storm, or why is the water gone?
Sure.
And so, so not every step of the way, and things have changed throughout the day, just in the last hour or two, not just with the water rising, but even that wind kind of changing as well. And really, since this morning with Hurricane Helene waking up with a Category 2, then a Category 3, and now we have a Category 4 storm in the Gulf of Mexico.
Right, and the storm surge is continuing to rise right now. So the water levels are going to get worse in some areas, which is unfortunate. I want to give you a unique view right now of this hurricane. This is from above. This is from the International Space Station, about 250 miles above Earth right here. The International Space Station orbits Earth in about 93 minutes, but it was able to take this picture, and you see both the beauty and terrifying picture here of this storm. Look at that, just looking right, and you get an idea of just how big this is. Hundreds of miles this storm is. Really every part of the state of Florida in one way or another is impacted by this storm.
And Bobby, I'm going to put you on the spot here. I'm trying to remember exactly what you said earlier when we look at this, and you can see the magnitude of it. You said potentially the largest storm recorded with Helene's wind field?
No, not the largest recorded,
Okay.
but twice. We were comparing it to other storms.
Okay.
So people have an idea why we were going to get the surge we're going to get.
Okay.
It would be about 150 miles wider than the storm winds with Idalia.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow, and that was a big storm too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Over 450 miles wide.
So as this goes north, Bobby, talk about this storm as it kind of heads north. It's going to hit Florida. It's going to hit up there in Tallahassee area, around that area. It's going to cause a lot of damage, a lot of flooding. But then it's going to move north. How far can this storm move? I mean, what states? We have a lot of people from out of state here. People have moved here from out of state. People are visiting from out of state. How far north do you think this storm?
Some people have evacuated out of state.
Absolutely, yeah. And how far north do you think this is going to move?
Well, see, and that's the other thing. When we ask people to evacuate tens of miles, not hundreds of miles, right? Because if you drive right in where it's going, it's coming to get you there. Let's take a look at our forecast track. So the pinkish red that you see here, those are hurricane warnings. Okay. The blue are tropical storm warnings. Here it is right now, 140 mile per hour. The pressure's down to 939. That's impressive. Meteorologists geek out on that stuff. That is low. But this will move up to the north. And so here we go. You can see it. Atlanta's right here. They just about have hurricane. They could see hurricane gusts in Atlanta, and that's amazing. But this whole southwest part of Georgia is going to get it. Now, then it goes up into the mountains. Some places in here, we're going to end up with 2 to 4 inches of rainfall. Some places in the mountains are going to end up with 15 plus inches of rain. North Georgia, something like that, okay? Then it goes out and it does a loop here and as it's falling apart, and then kind of drifts off towards the east. What you are seeing here in the blue and the red are basically wind warnings. The blue is tropical storm wind force winds, 39 to 73. That pinkish area, that is basically 74 mile per hour winds or higher. Most of that will be in gusts. I don't think we'll get steady winds, all that, but there will be certainly spots in South Georgia that could get 75 mile per hour sustained winds. That's amazing. And that's because it's moving at 24 miles per hour. So it'll start to fall apart as soon as it goes over land. But if it's not spending a lot of time over one spot, it's just going to continue to move and fall apart at about the same rate, but it's going to be falling apart further inland because of that move. So a lot of friends, a lot of family up in the southeast will be dealing with this. There's also that tornado threat all the way up through here as well. Haven't said much about South Carolina, but the high country of South Carolina, they're going to get a ton of rain too. And it could be pretty bad as far as the flooding goes. And then in these areas, first initially you get the heavy rainfall in the mountains, and that causes flash flooding because it's the relief, right? You got the valleys. And it rains on the sides of those mountains, it all goes right down to the valleys, and it just rips down through the bottom there. That's the initial thing that happens in the mountains. That water's all going down to the rivers and eventually trying to make it down to the coast. The rivers in South Carolina, not only in high part of it, but the low country is going to start to fill up eventually. That takes 2-3 days after the storm goes by. And Carolina Beach right here where the N is in Wilmington just got 20 inches of rainfall with that system a week and a half ago. So potentially some spots in North Carolina, it could be 2 spots in North Carolina, Carolina Beach and somewhere out there northwest of Charlotte that see almost 20 inches of rainfall in about a week and a half. That is a ton of moisture, and that is affecting a lot of people. And again, you've got just about the entire state of Florida with at least a tropical storm warning in it. And you see all of this red on the backside. that's a lot of wind still. That's a lot of rain, and that's just going to be feeding out over that warm water even after the center is on land. So it's just going to take a while for all of this really to fall apart. And by a while, I would say about 24 hours before it really comes down. In fact, let me go back and show you what you got.
I was just going to say, we just got the 10 o'clock update in, and the
Yep.
pressure dropped from 941 to 939.
Yep.
So slight little change there. but-
Yep. And so look at this wind here by tomorrow morning at 2 a.m. I mean, it's just a few hours. 105 mile per hour winds over top of South Georgia, right? And then tomorrow afternoon, it really drops down, but it's over East Tennessee with 45 mile per hour winds. So just kind of do the math, and you're going to get those highest winds right in there. Yeah, that's why it's going to affect so many people and take out, I almost say, it's a hard thing to say. It's not taking a lot of time. It's just moving so fast. It's going to cover a lot of geography and bring hurricane force winds to a lot of people that don't typically see it. Guys, the other thing about the wind that we're seeing right now, that will stay up a little bit. Okay. But generally what's going to happen is some of these rain bands are going to stick around, and the overall wind will slowly start coming down, especially after 2 in the morning. But when you get these rain bands, we will keep some good gusts. And I'm talking gusts in the 30s, perhaps even in the 40s. They won't last long. It won't be a steady thing. But because we have these rain bands and they'll keep streaming through the area, we will see some of that last into the, I'd say, early dawn hours or so.
And Bobby, looking at that right there, we said around 10 o'clock we would see that landfall. Where are we looking timing-wise right now for people who are looking for family up in the Tallahassee area?
Landfall's probably going to be closer to about 11:45 midnight.
Okay.
That's technically the center, but the northern eye wall is coming on right now. That area right there is moving on shore. So they're getting 100, 130 mile per hour winds, I would say, in some of those spots. Are just about ready to get that, especially over here on the right side. That's wind just going straight into the coast, and that's where the highest surge is going to be too. That's 15 to 20 feet. We're seeing 4 to 6. Mm-hmm. They're seeing 4 to 5 times that. Well, 4 times that.
Yeah, I mean, you see the damage we are seeing around here. Can you imagine 4 times the damage up to the north of us?
Fortunately, not quite as populated, low-lying kind of rural area, but there are some. And I mean, that's why we say get ready, be prepared. Because if this happened in Fort Myers, it almost happened here with Ian. Instead it went to Fort Myers. It could have happened here this time, right? We don't know at the beginning of every season where anything's going to form. We don't know once it forms where it's going to go. We know what can happen when it hits, and we know that it can hit us. And so that's why you're always seeing us saying the same old things. Have your hurricane kit, have your plan, get ready to go. And just hope that we don't have to deal with it. So it's going to be a lot of cleanup.
All right, Bobby, thank you. And, we're still looking at that radar right there. You can see it. We're feeling those impacts still. We're going to continue to feel that as that water still pushes inland, pushes on shore.
Yeah, Chris Hurst has joined us live again from Venice. Chris, when we last left you, the water was continuing to rise. Are you still seeing the water rising there?
Dave, Courtney, the water level seems to be stabilizing, at least for the time being, potentially even going down. But the lights for this whole stretch of downtown Venice and the Tamiami Trail just went out about 90 seconds ago. So we had ample lighting to see what was going on with this floodwater from Roberts Bay and from Donna Bay coming up over the Tamiami Trail. And now all you can really see is that street light and then the cars that are still trying to pass through this water. Now, there is one that is stalled. It's a convertible. I went up and talked to the guy, asked him if he needed any help. He said that he's going to call a tow truck, call his insurance company, call the authorities. They haven't been out here yet, though, so that car is still there. Looks like there's another car that may be trying to assist him, but now we do have stalled cars here on the Tamiami Trail in Venice as you're heading out towards Inglewood and Business 41. And Dave, Courtney, the fella here who's with his wife, the Purple Heart veteran who was and the lights just came back on. The generator power has kicked back on here in downtown Venice. We talked to the couple. They own these homes that are right off my shoulder here, and they came back because they simply just wanted to check and see what it looked like inside. And he said, it does not look very good. Now, what he did say, though, positively, was that the water went from about mid-thigh. It's gone down a few inches back down to his knee. But, of course, the tide is still rising here. It is expected to crest for high tide. It's about, I think, about 11:50 midnight or so, Tim. I think that's right for what high tide is. But we do have the lights that have kicked back on, just the generator lights, right? So it's not all of the street lighting that had been up here. It's just these overhead lights, these auxiliary lights. But we still have people that are trying to drive through this floodwater here in downtown Venice. We know that so many coastal roadways and communities in Sarasota and Manatee counties are inundated with storm surge right now. The wind has died down a little bit, but still consistently in the 30 and 40 mile per hour range gusts, even higher than that. Again, continuing to push this water more into inland areas. But at least for right now, the water level, Dave and Courtney, seems to be stabilizing, maybe even going down. We'll see how much as we approach high tide, maybe that water level comes back up again.
Yeah, and thank you for checking on that couple,
Yes.
Chris. That's very nice of you. I know that's two people, and a lot of folks are in harm's way tonight, but we want to make sure as many people as possible are safe and accounted for.
Yeah. I don't know if we still have Chris. If we do, I mean, I'm curious. Chris, we still have you. You've been through several of these storms, and I think Longboat Key is one area where you've been out. We were not able to be out there. Have you been able to check in with anybody that you know, any sources out there to see kind of how these areas are doing, what it's looking like in terms of that surge?
Well, so we do know that Longboat Key, particularly on the bay side, is very vulnerable and susceptible. We would expect that any similar flooding, we heard this from Sarasota County and also, I believe, Venice officials, that if you had flooding during Idalia, if you even had flooding during Debbie, you might expect that there would be some flooding as well. We know that St. Armand Circle and areas that are up farther north of that in Manatee County. Here, I'm going to step out a little bit just as we continue to have more cars. Actually, wow, so they're dragging this this convertible out.
Wow.
A Good Samaritan came by in this big Jeep and is carrying the first car that got flooded out here on the Tamiami Trail. And so at least we are able to move this car out of the way. And the driver is in the car, and he's okay. I talked to him, but obviously he's very upset. He had this car for about a year, he said, and now he might just have to try and strip it or salvage it for parts. So one thing too, Dave and Courtney, that I also forgot to mention is that there also were a couple of people that were here in the median. There are neighborhoods that are in front of me that are now underwater. I talked to two fellas who said that their mother was in there and needed to be rescued, and that an ambulance came just in the last half hour, and they said that she was rescued from her home. So right where we are in downtown Venice, we already are seeing some rescues of people from their homes, and clearly cars now that are getting stuck here in this rising water.
Yeah, whether or not it's a simple home out there or a nice Mercedes like that, everybody's concerned about their property and making sure they get through this okay. So tough time for a lot of people.
Yeah, and we're going to see more of those rescues and more of this moving forward as well in a lot of counties. And they have the teams that are out there ready to deploy as soon as it's safe, or if it's safe right now, they are going in and helping where they can. One other area where we've just seen a ton of water, Dave. I mean, I texted Eric Glasser earlier. My jaw dropped looking at Bayshore Boulevard. We've seen the water there, but it was the washing machine that I talked about right there. And I think we have that. Do we have a live look there at Bayshore Boulevard? Yep, there it is. You might recall earlier, Eric Glasser was down, just past the balustrades as it dips in, the steps that lead down into the bay. And I remember him saying, here I am, and just imagine, 5 feet over my head. Look at this right here.
And look how it's moving there. I mean,
Yeah.
just the challenge of, there's just no way that water is going to go where it wants to go and find its way. You just hope that you're not too close to that right now. You just wonder, and you see the lights off in the distance. I believe that is Tampa General Hospital right there. So we were told by Eric that he saw a lot of activity, a lot of ambulances, fire trucks, that kind of thing going into Tampa General Hospital. We also have Miguel Octavio, who is in St. Pete right now. Miguel, you moved to higher ground to avoid some of those floodwaters there. What are you seeing right now? What's it like there?
Well, Dave and Courtney, you both mentioned how strong the wind sounded outside, and I can tell you those winds are getting much stronger. We can really hear the howling of those winds, and we can only imagine what the storm surge looks like closer to the water, where we spent most of our day at Vinoy Park, North Shore Park, and some of those areas that were already flooding when there was daylight out, including Shore Acres. In fact, in this hotel in downtown St. Pete, we met a number of people who evacuated from those low-lying coastal areas, including Shore Acres, a lot of them keeping track of their homes right now through their door cameras and the inside as well, and their heart just breaks seeing the flooding going inside, water going inside once again, because it was just more than a year ago when a number of those people were flooded out because of Hurricane Idalia, and they're back here at the same spot. And Pinellas County is warning we still have not reached the peak of the storm surge quite yet, expecting about 5 to 8 feet, and already more than 200,000 people have lost their power. They've gotten several 911 calls over flooding as well. So right now they are just hoping those who evacuated from Zone A evacuated. There's a lot of concern over the barrier islands as well. I just want to show you how strong some of the conditions are over here, but you can really see those trees swaying from that wind. And of course, we can only imagine how the water looks like as of now when we were there, when it was earlier there during the day. But I've been talking to people over text, just checking in with them. Some of them have not evacuated from some of those zones. They wanted to keep track of their homes, but it looks like the water had reached about waist-deep level right now in some of those neighborhoods, including Shore Acres. We also spoke to those living in the Edgemore neighborhood. They've been sending me pictures of how their streets looked earlier this morning and how it looked days before. When we checked out some of those streets, they were already flooded, so we can only imagine what those streets look like with the strength of this wind, with the strength of the storm surge as well. Just speaking to some neighbors who evacuated to some of these hotel rooms closer inland, I can tell you their heart is just breaking seeing the water going into their homes once again, and they're just hoping that as we continue to see these conditions, the amount of damage they see is just minimal. But right now, a lot of people just heartbroken at these conditions right now, and first responders are just hoping people are hunkering down somewhere safe where they can be away from the storm surge and the water here. Dave and Courtney.
All right, Miguel, thank you so much. Miguel, live for us in downtown St. Pete. We want to give you a look at what we're seeing in Gulfport. We have viewers that are kind of sending in photos throughout the evening, and we have one of those pictures, I think, from Denise. And you can just see just how much, there you go, just how much water is there. There was another angle that we were seeing. So it's probably more than like a foot and a half is what it looks like, and especially against some of the businesses that we've seen. Just one look at part of our area.
Wow, this is a waterfront community, but this is not what it normally looks like. David Shealy is at the Sponge Docks up in Tarpon Springs for us right now. David, what are you seeing there?
So we were able to make it safely to the docks, and this street is indeed flooded. It is about waist deep. If you were to go way in there, we're obviously not going to step in there. We have a visual of a city truck. Now that truck earlier today was just sitting there. There wasn't anybody in the truck. About 30 minutes ago, you could see the headlights of that truck. You can no longer see the headlights, just so you have an idea, of how high the water has gone. There's also live wires that have gone down, according to the Tarpon Springs Police Department. Some live wires are in this water as well. So there are some people here trying to take pictures, but we're letting them know, stay away from these waters, stay out of the water, because there are live wires. Now, we were able to meet a business owner, Nick. I'll bring him in here. He's one of the business owners. And Nick, how did you prepare for this storm? And from what you can see, how are things looking for your business right there just behind us?
I mean, you can't really prepare for it. You just gotta ride it out, being that we are in the Sponge Docks area. It's been going on forever, so people try to put sandbags in front of their businesses, and they try to tape up, they try to do whatever they can. Pretty much just be better if everybody would stop driving by the businesses and with their big lifted trucks and pushing the water further and further into the businesses. Best thing you can do is pretty much just wait it out. I mean, it's typical if you're a Tarpon Springs business owner, in the Sponge Docks especially, that when the storm comes, Tropics never goes underwater. It is completely underwater, so that just goes to show you guys how bad everything's going right here, right now. that white truck was there to prevent people from driving through. It's a city truck. They sacrificed it. And well, like I said, the only thing we could do is ask people to, care about the businesses and try not to push wake further and make things already worse than they already are.
So this is about the worst you've seen it here on the street.
Absolutely. There was a no-name storm probably in the 90s, I think, that had shrimp boats on top of the bridge over here. But besides that, this is the worst I've ever seen it. Tropics never gets flooded, ever. Sidewalk gets wet at the most, and it's completely underwater inside. So this lets everybody know how bad the rest of the businesses at the end of the street are. They're completely sunk.
We'll continue to wait it out, Nick. Thank you for your time, and stay safe out here.
You too.
Thank you for
Take
your
care.
time. Again, Tarpon Springs, right here at the Sponge Docks. This is a flooded area. Please avoid this area. There are live wires that are down in the water. So if you are trying to be like some folks here, some of our neighbors here are trying to take in the sights of the flood, do not go into the water because of the live wires. For now, in Tarpon Springs at the Sponge Docks, David Shealy in Tampa Bay.
David, thank you. Really great perspective there from Nick. And you can see people now walking behind you as well as they're out there surveying that damage. And a lot of what we're seeing, we can see the level of the water right now, but a lot of that damage we're going to see when we have light and the full scope of what's happened.
David, this is such a tourist destination down there in Tarpon Springs, and some of these people cater to the tourists. I know they have seen flooding there before, as Nick mentioned there. Do you know how far down, how many businesses, do you have a sense as to how many are impacted? Are we talking dozens? Are we talking hundreds? Or how much damage, or how far and widespread do you think this flooding is?
Probably at least 40.
So just overhearing Nick just now, he said it's about 40-ish businesses right here in the Sponge Docks, and they're all dealing with this flood right now. Now, we have seen sandbags in front of their doors all day. They boarded their windows. They had sandbags in front of the doors. Some of the businesses way down there had some metal barriers as well. So they prepared, but as we heard them say, this is historic to them because the water has not been this high before. So as you mentioned, once the light comes, once the sun comes out and we're able to actually see what's going on, we'll get a real assessment of the water damage.
Yeah, and this is dirty water. I mean, this is not clean water going into your building, and that's a whole different problem for a lot of folks. It's dirty, it's dangerous. There's just a lot in that water, and it's tough to recover from it. It takes a lot of work to mitigate that.
And the damage that salt water does to a lot of things, including, we talked about that, right, Dave, the lithium ion batteries. It could be a Tesla, it could be your kid's hoverboard. All of those things can be corroded by that salt water. That is to say the least about the damage that we're seeing. We do have, I think, a look live at Siesta Key right now. This is an area, to get a view of that. 10:25 right now, and look right there. Grainy picture, but you can see that water pushing in.
Yeah, and this is just multiplied by many, many communities across the Tampa Bay area, and it's difficult to tell when you look at a picture like this or a live shot, just how much water that is. But you can see
it moving.
It's moving water,
Right.
And we've been seeing moving water up in Crystal River as well. Aaron Parsegian is up that way, keeping an eye on things for us there. Aaron, is it? I think last time we checked with you, maybe it was kind of stabilizing just a bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was pretty medium level at this point when we're checking the water levels here on Kings Bay, but we can start to see it slowly rising in this area, and that's because of some of these big gusts of winds we're seeing. If you can check out this little inlet behind me, this goes right out to Kings Bay. On the other side is US 19. Water not approaching there yet, but you can see how choppy this water is back here with some of this wind blowing. So this is obviously the time of the night where we start to get concerned for that level of potential storm surge that this area could see. When we're talking several feet, that's definitely enough water to go up onto the road, start to go into businesses and some of the homes that live around Kings Bay. That's why this is part of the evacuation zone. Leading up to this storm, emergency officials here in Citrus County were talking about the need to evacuate because of how life-threatening storm surge can be. And in fact, we were staying at a hotel in Lecanto about 20 minutes away. Most of the people there are evacuees from this area of Crystal River because they're not taking any chances. They've been through a lot in the past year and some change. We're talking about 3 different storms dating back to Hurricane Italia, then Hurricane Debbie, and now this one. So this is what they've been keeping a close eye on. It's that time of the night where this concern for storm surge here in Kings Bay, where a lot of this water ends up filtering out into the streets and these surrounding neighborhoods, is really coming into focus.
Hey, Aaron, we see the lights on behind you there, and I'm not sure if that's a generator back there or what. As you look around, we have hundreds of thousands of power outages across the state of Florida right now. How is power in that area? Does it appear they've lost a lot of their power?
Well, there's definitely some outages. We took a drive around town probably about an hour ago. Many of the street lights were off. And at one point in the night, we definitely heard what sounded like a transformer blowing. So that definitely is a concern. Some tree limbs here and there just from the sheer strength of the wind. But of course, the main concern here is going to be that storm surge as we approach later into the night and early tomorrow morning with these areas all around Kings Bay.
All right, Aaron, thank you so much, live in Crystal River. And we've been checking in. It's interesting to see the things that have changed and how quickly they've changed and kind of where we are. It gives a really nice perspective of what we're, kind of that baseline of what we're seeing. You are joining us here on 10 Tampa Bay. I'm Courtney Robinson along with Dave Wagner, and we are here keeping you informed, prepared, and connected with our coverage of Hurricane Helene. 10:30 now. We are, about an hour, a little bit more than an hour away from potential landfall of Hurricane Helene as a Category 4 storm in that Big Bend area. And we have been showing you the surge that we have seen in the Tampa Bay region, all of that water. It's also caused a lot of power outages as well. Yeah, I mean, that storm is well past us at this point, but there's quite a surge of water left behind and a lot of power outages as well. Hundreds of thousands of people in the state of Florida right now are without power, many of those in the Tampa Bay area and north. And as that hurricane makes landfall, there will be an increasing number of people in the state without power. Right. Looking at numbers, and again, those power crews, they're out right now. There's also many on standby in the state, to get to the hardest hit areas where that, there are so many with the wind that they're going to see north of us that will be without power. Duke, 207,000 customers without power. Tico, almost 90,000. And when we look at Florida Power and Light, Sarasota's got 42,000, Manatee 35,000. So quite a bit. Yeah. Keeping it down. Thanks, Bobby. You have something for us here.
Yeah, well, let's just kind of reset where we are here because we're getting close to landfall with the storm here. 140 mile per hour winds as of 10 o'clock. You can see where it is. It's right there. The pressure's down to 939. That's about 65 miles northwest of Cedar Key. So here goes the forecast track, as you can see, and I'll get in here tight in just a minute. But you can see it's going to be producing hurricane force winds all the way up through central Georgia. All right, then it will fall apart. Now, let's talk surge. So these are tide levels. This one is at Cedar Key. And this is amazing. They are going into major flooding right now. The red line that you see here is the actual measured level of the water in Cedar Key. And they're very close to that eye wall. They're actually a little bit to the east of it. Places like Horseshoe Beach, they're going to be actually closer to the eye wall and will have more storm surge. But that's amazing right there, those numbers. Here, obviously, here's where the level should be. It should be down here by about maybe about a foot or so, and it's going to be all the way up there at 6-7 feet. So that was Cedar Key. That's the highest. This one's important too because this is Clearwater Beach, but look what's happened. It started to crest a little bit here and will slowly start to come down. See the tides? The tide's not going to let it come down a whole lot, but the part that's being driven by water, which has gotten it way up here, that part will start to come down. So you actually will see it start to come down just a little bit here over the next couple of hours. All right, so that's actually a little bit of good news. There's the eye wall on the satellite. You can see it's just about there. See all the little wobbles that it does? And you get those really because we're looking at it on radar. It's likely doing that even when we don't have it, when it's down in the Northwest Caribbean, right? Because we just don't have much radar there. Here's the picture of the radar now. You can see very heavy rainfall just west of Crystal River. That northern eye wall is now moving right into the area. This is the radar from up there. And look at the still thunderstorms, still lightning around this on both sides of the eye now. And that's an indication it still probably has about 130 to 140 mile per hour winds. They've got it at 140 right now. But you can see where Tallahassee is. They're going to miss the heaviest wind, which is right in here, but they're going to get a lot of wind. And unfortunately, it looks like Perry is going to be very close to the center of this. And they are just now getting that very, very heavy wind. Of course, the rainfall that's coming through. But they're basically getting in that northern eye wall. This is Horseshoe Beach. That's what I was saying. They have more surge, I think, than even Cedar Key. And that is, even though you don't see rain right here, there's a ton of wind blowing right straight onto the coast in Horseshoe Beach. They are just outside that southeast eye wall. Cedar Key, that's where we had that very high major flooding category surge just now. And Yankeetown, a little bit inland, but not by much. Nothing's really too far inland up there. The center now from Clearwater Beach is about 128 miles north-northwest. So moving at 24 miles per hour, that's definitely going to pull it away from here pretty quickly. Look at all the rain, though. I mean, we still got these heavier bands that are offshore. You can see the center from the hurricane center. It's going to probably end up just a little bit right about there. For us, we still have thunderstorms developing. Crystal River, Aaron's going to start hearing. He's probably already hearing it. You're seeing some light flashing out there. Some of that's thunderstorms. And some of these cells here are heavy. Look how they're kind of merging together a little bit right there. That helps to squeeze out some moisture. And so we've had a little bit of a break on this US 19 corridor for Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus. But that's about to change. We've got some heavier rain coming through. Fortunately, there's not a lot of people out, but this is the type of rain that will cause some minor flooding on the roads and that type of thing. Again, if you live in one of these areas where you get 2 inches or so of rain in a short amount of time and it floods, probably going to have that happen this evening. Well, literally 3 to 6 inches of rain, and I think 6 is on the high side. These areas probably going to end up all in all about 2 to 3 inches right along the immediate coast. Very sporadic rain for our inland friends, Polk County, Haines City, Lakeland, Lake Wales, Fort Meade. Heavier rain now coming in from Clearwater, Bel Air Beach, all the way up to Dunedin, Tarpon Springs, Trinity, Newport Richey, Port Richey, and Hudson. We're basically going to see that continue to break up further south you go. So Manatee, Sarasota County, boy, do I know you're happy that you didn't get all that rain that you got from Debbie, that's for sure. But we do have that heavier rain moving out into Highlands County right now. So the number of, well, let's look at the precip totals here, right? This is estimated by the Doppler, but you can see 1 to 2 inches. Some spots, there's obviously local spots I've seen more than that, but half an inch for inland counties, and some areas didn't even see that. Again, we have another inch or so to add to these numbers, so rainfall is not going to be the primary threat from this, but it is certainly going to add to the mess of all of this. So one last thing here, guys, and then I'll toss it back to you. I did want to measure, we were talking about the size of this. This is just the extent of basically the rain from it. About 1,000 miles. It's raining right now in parts of southern Ohio, while at the same time there are rain bands down towards Key West from this one system. It is kind of merging with some systems up there, but literally you can see how it's all rotating up there. And then there's rain in almost Mississippi, West Tennessee. At the same time, there's rain on just about to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. That's a big reach. The core of the winds right in here, that's about 450 miles. That's one of the main reasons why we saw so much surge here in the Tampa Bay area.
Wow, that is one massive storm system there, and it just affecting so much of the country and will continue for days to come here.
And I'm just checking in right now too with different friends and that sort of thing who are in their homes and trying to see, you know, especially in areas that we can't get to, what things are looking like, and it's a lot of water. It's a lot of water.
Yeah. Hannah Deneen is in a place where there is a lot of water as well, Hernando County. She joins us live right now. Hannah, how have things changed for you?
Well, Dave, the last time you checked in with me, I was out in Hernando Beach, and I saw about a foot of water rush in just 30 minutes. That water was rising incredibly quickly, and for those who are familiar with the area, you know that there are very few roads that go in and out of the Hernando Beach area, of all the coastal parts of Hernando County, and all of those roads are prone to flooding. So we knew that we're at risk of getting stuck out there if we stayed much longer. So we decided to drive inland closer to Brooksville, and as we were driving, we came to this intersection here. It's Cortez Boulevard and Commercial, And you can see just ahead, blocking Cortez going toward the beach, there is a roadblock. There is no one getting by that officer there. They tell me that because of the storm surge, because of debris in the roadway now, and also because of some down power lines in the road, again, no one is getting by them despite if they have proof of address, if they live in the area. They are keeping everyone out at this point for their own safety. Just on our own drive through that area down Cortez, we did see a lot of debris in the roadway. We saw a tree that had fallen over that had partially blocked Cortez Boulevard. We did just see some utility crews go beyond that cop car there, and I'm sure that they're on their way to tackle that downed tree. But again, at this point, no one except for first responders and those utility crews will be making their way from this area towards Hernando Beach. In Hernando County, Hannah Deneen, 10 Tampa Bay.
Hannah, I'm glad you went to higher ground there, to a safer place. Good to have you with us again. Thanks for letting us know what's going on there in Hernando County.
And that water does come up quickly. I want to give you a look here in Tampa. We have the Courtney Campbell Causeway by Gators Pass, kind of looking toward downtown Tampa. I mean, okay, so here you can see, law enforcement really having to block the road off because there is water, on the roadway. The Courtney Campbell closed this evening. I'm trying to remember exactly when. It was probably around 5 o'clock at this point. It's been closed for some time as Florida Highway Patrol and the counties really started to make sure that people were, sheltering in place at that point, and staying out of areas where so much water just coming over, crashing over from those rocks.
Right. And all the bridges, all the major bridges, the Courtney Campbell, the Gandy, the Howard Franklin, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge, they're all closed. Keep in mind, we do not have a time as to when those may reopen. I've been seeing people talking online. Do you know when the Gandy Bridge is going to reopen, or the Howard Franklin? We don't know at this point. They won't be reopened until they're deemed to be safe. And hopefully that'll be sooner than later. We also don't know. We saw all those heavy waves rocking the Howard Franklin.
Right.
We don't know if there's any damage this time around because it has been damaged in the past. So that'll have to be dealt with if indeed there are problems there.
And also, priorities. Yes, it does cripple the area in terms of being able to get from Pinellas, get from Tampa. Yeah. But there are also people who are going to need to be rescued. We've heard from each of our reporters saying that they have been in touch with law enforcement or officials in their communities, and that there were rescues that were happening, be it fires, be it high water, car crashes, that sort of thing. Yeah,
Aduria Chumba is in downtown St. Pete. And you look like you maybe are in a different location or a different position there. Aduria, what are you seeing there? What are the winds like? What is the water like there?
Right now, the winds are intensifying. We're hearing the howling blowing in downtown St. Petersburg right now. And we're getting reports already of power outages and light poles and transformers on fire. Right now, nearly 300,000 people have lost power. We're also getting reports of water rescues, and some of the law enforcement also not conducting any more rescues because it's putting their personnel in harm's way because of how intense this is becoming. As you can see, you can hear it. The wind is really picking up on this side, and you can see the trees being swept around because of just how intense those winds are. Now, earlier in the day, when it was still daylight, we were over by the St. Pete Pier, and we watched as the storm surge was slowly building up and throughout the day, and we saw that the water start spilling over and breaching the seawall there. And at that point, people started clearing out of that area. Again, the prediction of upwards of 8 feet of storm surge. We know that some places like Clearwater have already seen 6 feet of storm surge as well. Again, we are still not at the height of the storm and what it's supposed to bring, what it's predicted to bring. So law enforcement, they're reminding folks, shelter in place. Do not try to get out on the roads, and if you're taking in water, get to higher ground, because at this time it's not safe to get people out there. So get to higher ground. Live in St. Petersburg, Daria Chumba, 10 Tampa Bay.
All right, Adri, thank you so much. Let's touch base on the other side of the bay. I mentioned earlier trying to check in on people, see what we were seeing. When we talk about Bayshore Boulevard, we often think of that beautiful stretch with the balustrade, but it extends so much farther south of Gandy, and that is an area where we are seeing it. This is a home that's kind of near MacDill Air Force Base, closer to MacDill, along Bayshore. So that is the bay in the backyard.
Is on stilts there?
No, it is not on stilts. That is just, there's actually a dock that you might be able to see kind of it off in the distance where that blue light is. That right there is kind of that boat. Dock, and anyway, so it's coming in, and you can see the planter right there, going up over several steps. There's also right there with the fire pit that you can see. So I would say standing there, probably up to my kneecaps,
oh my goodness.
which would be maybe 1.5 feet right now.
Oh, I'm so sorry for your friend and her family. I know that's really just an awful, awful thing to deal with. You know, it's sort of the beauty and the curse of living in a place like this, and we certainly have seen changes in these storms over the past few years. So it's been a challenge for anybody who's even remotely close to water, and a lot of folks who aren't close to the water as well.
Yeah, and in this situation, heating that evacuation, so they're safe, they're kind of nearby. But then checking in just a little bit farther inland with the Inner Bay area. No water right there.
Yeah, kind of hit and miss.
Hit and miss, but no power.
Tropicana Field also hit by this storm. Take a look right here if you can. This right here, this is one of the signs outside here, a home of the Rays. It is a number of these around, but yeah, it has been kind of pushed over. Don't know whether or not, I'm assuming that is wind, and hopefully that's something that can be righted there. But, this is just an example. It is, sometimes it's the most kind of bizarre and random thing that gets damaged in these storms. And that's one of them right there at Tropicana Field in downtown St. Pete.
Gusts in the upper 70s to near 80 in St. Pete.
Makes sense. So, I mean, you would think some of these things would be able to withstand winds, but they haven't really been tested sometimes, some of these things. So hopefully they can fix that down there.
Let's take a look at TGH. Eric Glasser, when he was live just a bit ago, sharing that there's a lot of activity happening at Tampa General Hospital, and you can see right there, that's that ramp. As you're coming on to Davis Islands and you look over toward TGH, there's the ramp, the parking garage, it's inundated. And I'm trying to get another perspective here. Just a lot of water just rushing through, but they are.
Look at the cars in there,
wow.
Vehicles in there, yeah. And this building is surrounded by kind of this water barrier, this new thing they spent a lot of money on to try to contain it and keep the floodwaters out. Obviously, there are generators for the folks there, but this rushing water is just so devastating. You just wonder how many cars are in there. Hopefully not that many on the first floor.
Right.
But it says visitor parking, and we just, people are going through enough when they're in the hospital. They don't need this.
Right. And Mayor Castor, I can't remember if it was earlier today or yesterday, at this point, they opened up the parking garages for the city for people who needed to move there, people who lived on Davis Islands or, lived in some of these low-lying areas in the city of Tampa to, put their cars in that. There you go.
Look at this. This is US 19 at Curlew Road. This is in Dunedin. And wow, look how deep that water is.
Wow.
I mean, and yeah, I mean, and that's, that's not waterfront, waterfront area there. So it is, wow, that is amazing. And you think about all the homes and businesses around that area, pretty heavily populated area, and just a beautiful community there. You just wonder how much damage there is, but we've seen this scene repeated and repeated and repeated throughout our coverage area. Bobby,
is that old? 19?
Yeah, that's
gotta be old.
it's probably is old 19.
I was just looking it up right now because we both kind of.
Yes.
Home Depot would be flooded.
No, that's Home Depot. It's right near Home Depot, right?
Is that
Or that's alternate 19. No, that's closer.
That's old 19.
No, that's
alt 19.
Okay, that's the old one.
There's
You're
no
right.
way
You're
to
right.
get that much water. That's a big ridge
Okay.
up there.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
still, that's a lot of water for that area there, and we still have, Bobby, we still haven't technically reached peak storm surge.
No, we haven't. We have not at this point. Clearwater Beach's level did look like it's starting to crest a little bit, so that's good news.
Okay.
And I think a lot of the cresting will happen within the next hour or two.
Okay.
All right. Lee was just talking, in charge of our building. He was just
Right.
asking. We've got about 6 inches in our parking lot, and I can show you
Okay.
that. If you guys want to take my weather computer
Yeah.
briefly, I can show you that. That's why we're not at the TV station, because even though it's not going to
There
get in
you
the
go.
building, you
Wow.
can see that the building is surrounded by water right now, and you don't
This
want
is
cars.
directly on the inland waters of Tampa Bay. Our station is this little building. That's not our television station right there. That's actually what used to be our landing pad for our helicopter, but it's now kind of a picnic area.
Became the Dodge Jeep Chrysler Weather Center for
my
some
goodness.
time.
Yep, absolutely.
Now it's
yep.
home to otters.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
right.
And no seams.
Yes. So, and we normally this is not covered in water there normally,
No.
but it's got
Even in heavy rain, it's not like this.
no.
You know.
And
So
it's got-
Lee's question was, if it comes like another 1 to 2 hours before it crests, which I think 2 is probably long, maybe another hour, is it enough time to get another 2 foot of water there? Because that would be his concern with that level, and I don't think it is. I don't think we'd see another 2 foot of level anywhere, especially in the Tampa Bay area. Perhaps up into Crystal River area, because they still have a little bit more time than we do. But I think that. I mean, if we even saw another foot, I'd be surprised.
So, we don't want to focus too much on ourselves because
Right.
there's so many people out there who've lost
Oh,
so
this
much.
is just a marker.
No,
Yes,
yeah.
but Bobby,
Literally
I wanted
just
to
a marker.
ask you, looking at this video here right now, how long before this is likely to recede and it would be a dry parking lot?
That's probably going to take, I'd say, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning
Okay.
for that to happen. Because what's going to happen is, and it came up quick, it won't go down as quick. But I think we were talking to Aaron. Aaron said it was this high, but then it actually did start to come down a few inches. He was talking to somebody up there. That'll be kind of the nature. Meanwhile, at Port Manatee, we had it come up 1.5 foot in 30 minutes earlier. That's not going to drop 1.5 foot in half an hour, right? That's not going to happen. It'll slowly come down. Remember, we've got high tide in this area, and this is Feather Sound, this is Gandy Boulevard, this is Shore Acres area, right? In that part of central Pinellas, southeast Pinellas. We have high tide there around 2 in the morning. So the moon's pulling the water up anyways, but the amount of wind that went on top of that lunar tide is coming down, and so the water level will come down just a little bit, but it's not going to be a whole lot. It'll be more so after we get past 2 a.m., 3 a.m. for most areas. Then it'll start to drop off.
Yeah, and we know what's oftentimes in the waters there beyond the fish and whatever. There are snakes in the area. There are all kinds of little critters. So when you're getting out there, keep in mind that the area that you're walking in, animals may have sort of drifted your way. It could be alligators, it could
Red
be
ants
snakes,
float.
red ants, all kinds of things. So it's and certainly we're not even talking about some of the toxic chemicals and the oil and everything else that you could be exposed to. So just be really careful in the water. You don't want it to have contact with your skin. I know some people want to walk around in it, and that's not a good idea with moving water. But I understand the temptation. But just keep in mind that some of the stuff in the water is pretty dangerous.
Wow. And speaking of that the Northeast sewer treatment plant,
yes.
that is now offline. So listen, if you live north, if you live or if you work north of 30th Avenue North and kind of east of 275 Haynes Road in St. Pete, you're going to be impacted by this. So we're talking, you don't have, water for your toilets, showers, all of that.
All that stuff.
And again, the sewer treatment plant offline.
Yeah,
So
Fort Myers really took a hit from Ian here, and I want to show you some video right now, if we can, of some of the wind. This is from earlier today, and some of the problems they had as a result of that wind. If we have the video, maybe we don't at this point.
they're
but,
working.
Okay, maybe working on it here. So we'll just sort of talk. Bobby, yes.
That I wanted to point out something that what Courtney was just talking about. That city of St. Petersburg, the Northeast sewage plant.
Yes.
Yes.
Some of the things that they were saying is, do not drain water in any part of your house. So don't take a shower, don't
Right.
do laundry, as you said, don't flush toilets. That water that you try to drain down there will back up in your house.
Yeah.
And that is the reason why you can't do that.
No. Yeah, and then, we talk about after storms move through, right? Like you don't want to be don't do in your washing machine, doing your wash
Drinking
and
the water, taking baths.
turning on the bath. Exactly. We do have a live picture. I don't think we have Fort Myers right now, but we do have a live picture of the downtown Tampa camera that we have, and it is looking right now at Tampa General Hospital. So this is a live look for you there, and you can see the camera's still shaking.
Yeah.
And look at the water right there, kind of going up. That's that flood wall. Is that flood wall?
I believe. Yeah, and what are the wind speeds, Bobby, right now down like around Tampa General, downtown Tampa? Do you have a sense?
Yeah. Let me.
He's
going to
check on that for us, but
that flood wall is getting a workout.
Yeah, they put sort of this vapor barrier, water barrier there, and newfangled kind of thing that seems to have worked well in the past, but this is an unusual storm. Obviously, we saw water getting into at least the first floor of the parking garage there,
Right.
so we know
might be that parking
we saw at
garage.
least one vehicle's damaged, and we assume there probably are more as well, but hopefully some of those have been parked a little higher. Bobby is checking on wind speeds down there. It's just, the camera's shaking, so you kind of question what we're talking.
They're blowing 37 miles per hour, gusting in the mid to upper 50s right now.
Oh, wow. Okay. 37 to upper 50s.
Still.
What we can't often see, right? When we look,
Yes.
we can see the water and you can see it moving, but to get those speeds, it's not calm out there.
Yeah. Chris Hurst is joining us live right now from Venice. He's been keeping tabs on people down there and the floodwaters down there. And Chris, boy, what a different scene behind you than we saw maybe a half hour ago or so. Just doesn't. I'm assuming you're in the same area. Is this the same area? You haven't moved?
Where that got towed, the car?
Yeah, we haven't moved. We did see another car get towed. It's about 20 yards in front of me, a Chrysler that also got flooded out. So we've seen two cars here in along Tamiami Trail, US 41, downtown Venice, a couple of miles south of here. We are just outside of Nokomis, where you can still see that we have the Tamiami Trail here covered in both directions. People still are trying to move through this floodwater in their cars, some successful, some not successful. We were talking last time, Dave and Courtney, about the water level here in southern Sarasota County. It still looks pretty consistent. It doesn't seem to be rising up any more at the moment like it has been for the past several hours, but still the water covering roadways. There was a paramedic who was actually here just a little while ago, and then he left, but he was going to check on that car that was flooded out, that second car that I didn't have a chance to get to show you. And I asked him, what is it like? And just from what he said they're backed up right now with 60 calls for service that they're trying to get to. I said, why haven't law enforcement closed down this road? And I just simply don't think that there are enough units to go around right now. They are attempting to do swift water rescues, not only here in southern Sarasota County, but apparently also there are calls for aid in Charlotte County. Some fires that have occurred here as Helene has moved through our area that they still have not been able to put out because of the rising water. And the last time I talked to that EMT, he said they're trying to get a boat out here to maybe be able to go home by home to see if the folks here need to be rescued, if they have an ability, if they didn't evacuate, to maybe ride it out. I can say that at least the wind has definitely died down from the gusts we saw crossing over 80 miles an hour, sustained winds into the 60s we had for much of the afternoon, but the wind has died down, and certainly the rain has not been here in any way that could have contributed seriously to what is already multi-foot storm surge, and a storm surge that is still covering a lot of roadways and going right now, Courtney and Dave, continuing into people's neighborhoods and into people's homes.
All right, Chris Hurst live for us in Venice. We're coming up here on 11 o'clock. We do want to, I think, take a look at where things stand with Hurricane Helene at this moment.
Yeah, Bobby's keeping an eye on things for us, has been all day, and as we have for several days now, Bobby.
Yeah. Cone of overtime, we call that, right? We want to be making sure that we're watching outside for those water levels to start coming down just a little bit. I want everybody that's worried about those water levels to know that they are going to be cresting here shortly in the Tampa Bay area. All right, here's the latest on Helene. 140 mile per hour winds. It's moving to the northeast at 24. 939 is the pressure. That hasn't changed much. What has changed is it's just about ready to make landfall. It's very, very close to that happening right now. It's 65 miles west-northwest of Cedar Key. I'll show you. That's about 90 miles from Crystal River. There it is. Almost official landfall. And actually, Colleen, we should be keeping an eye on that because they're going to issue something right in here. Keaton Beach is the place. There's Perry. Perry, yep, definitely going to be very close to Perry as well. But there's a couple small little places they call beaches down there. That's basically Keaton Beach, Deckle Beach, and over towards Fish Creek. That's going to be pretty much where the center of the eye goes on shore. That's what we figure out is the center, obviously, of the storm. Again, that's about 90 miles or so northwest of Crystal River, just behind the banner there. But you can see, look at still thunderstorms on the north and west side of this thing. It's actually a pretty good thunderstorm rolling through the Crystal River area right now. So very heavy rainfall in that area. They'll get more there than what we got, for sure, because they're just closer to the center where the more steady rainfall is. But you can see it's about 128 miles, probably 135 miles now from here in the Tampa area and moving further away. And that will continue. And basically, we're going to be left over with these scattered showers. A little bit heavier now for northern Pinellas, Pasco, Hernando, and Citrus counties. The heavier band that we saw earlier now out in the southeast Polk County and into Highlands County. Luckily, we don't have any spin-ups in there, and that was the one that we're really watching. We will still be watching for it in this area too, and we still have a tornado watch, basically Pinellas, Hillsborough, Polk counties northward for the next several hours. Technically, it goes until 6 a.m., but that's for the northern part of it. Ours will come out sooner than that. We will not have a tornado threat, I don't think, through 6 a.m. The winds right now, let's take a look at those. 38 in St. Pete is a sustained wind, steady wind. 58-mile-per-hour winds. I want to take you down to Sarasota. It's still blowing in the 30s, 49-mile-per-hour wind. Guys, when the sun comes up tomorrow, this water's coming out slowly overnight. There's a lot of stuff tore up on these beaches. I'm seeing pics and video from the north end of Anna Maria Island with about that much water, about 3 to 4 feet of water over parts of the island, and reports that it went from one side of the island to the other. Complete washover, right? And I think a lot of people were not expecting this. So there's going to be a lot. That water is going to slowly start coming down. If you can reach somebody, if they've called you, if they're trying to find information, let them know it will start to come down. But these winds are still blowing to the point where it's holding the water and the tide is still coming up. Okay, but over the next hour to 2 hours, it's just about 11 o'clock, just about 1 a.m., we will start to see these waters come down. I think we've already seen a little bit of crest at Clearwater. It's gusting to 54 miles per hour in Clearwater, 52 in Tampa, 55-mile-per-hour wind gust in Brooksville, 44 in Lakeland, Wauchula, Sebring. Look at 4-mile-per-hour wind in Sebring. Wondering what all the fuss is, right? And Newport Richey and Port Richey not really coming in with too much data, but generally they're in the 30s with gusts in the 50s. Here's the forecast for the wind gusts through midnight. See them coming down? But not that quickly, right? Gusts well into the 50s. These are basically severe thunderstorm warning gusts, although you have to get that to 58, but that's in the ballpark. And then after that, 2 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and here we go. It just jumped ahead because we just got to 11 o'clock, so you can see it will be jumping down as we go slowly through the overnight hours. But look, that's breezy all the way through sunrise early tomorrow morning. All right? Again, the water will start coming down here, I think, over the next hour or two. We've got to get past high tide, but what's pushed this up is diminishing. And so that is starting to come back down. 5 to 8 was the number. I think we're going to end up with 4, 3 to 5, maybe 4 to 5. Some spots will have seen 6. So pretty good number there. And we'll have to see some of the other spots. I mean, there are a couple spots. At Port Manatee, that number looked really high to me. So they may have gotten a really good surge out of it. And these records have all been broken today. Every one of these. Let me get out of the way so you can see it. Clearwater, East Bay, Port Manatee, Old Port Tampa, St. Pete. And those numbers are as of 9 o'clock tonight. Yes. So you could possibly add a foot to a foot and a half to every one of those numbers. And these numbers already broke the record. From a storm that's 110 miles offshore and not even going to make landfall here. That's Tampa Bay. That is the problem that we have with us for here. So yeah, they were rising as of 9 o'clock when we made that graphic. Amazing. There's the bigger picture. There's our tornado watch. Again, that will be cut off slowly from south to north as we go through the overnight hours. There will likely be they have high wind warnings that have been issued for this area up here, but you can see we are just moments away now from official landfall. This thing really sped up. It's going to be around 11 o'clock. I'd say Keaton Beach is probably what they're going to put it at. Rainfall totals for us, about 2 to 3 inches along the immediate coast. We still have some more rain, especially northern Pinellas, northwest Hillsborough, really, Little Road, US 19, Trinity, up into Port Richey, Newport Richey, up into Hudson as well. Those areas are going to get another possible inch or so of rainfall. It's not going to be terrible. It's not going to be, we've seen worse sometimes in the summertime, but obviously it's going to cause a little bit of minor flooding. And the numbers have been adding up, but this purple area you see out here, generally when I queried those earlier, they were in the 4 to 5 inch range and climbing. And so some of these spots out here end up seeing about 3 to 6 inches, and some of us are actually going to be a little less than that. So definitely not the headline for this storm, that's for sure. There you go, 3.5 out there. This is just in the last several hours. So yeah, those numbers did pile up just a little bit out west of us. There's our forecast model, taking it out of here by midnight. See these little stragglers left over? That's it, but there'll be quite a bit of dryness in there, at least as far as rainfall is concerned. But this fetch, this wind, right, that doesn't change much. Remember, it was blowing out of the south. This wind, this is what we had for the better part of 12 hours before the storm really got here. And now it's all southwest. And then watch as we go through 3 o'clock in the morning, southwest. As we go through 8 o'clock in the morning, southwest, west-southwest. It's just less wind. It comes down as we go through the day there. So things will be getting finally starting to quiet down just a little bit. Forecast rainfall from the GSF model. This is going to take it off to the north, and I think there's a little bit of rain that's added through tomorrow. Not much tomorrow, but really Saturday. That's what some of that is adding up to. We're going to get caught with some light rain on the backside of this really late Friday night and Saturday. I think Saturday afternoon we'll get some showers. But further up to the north, we've got some heavy rainfall, and that's where we're going to get all kinds of flooding. What was that? Oh, here we go.
This is 19, what we were looking at just a little bit ago.
Yep.
Right there, alternate 19 at Curlew, and you can see
they've gone in and got somebody.
First responders, yep, going in. It looks like a family now coming out to
It's like
safety.
they got that couple there. They're getting off the boat.
Yeah,
There
well,
we
thank
go.
goodness these first
Yeah.
responders are out there and able to help. As they mentioned, it puts their lives on the line too.
Right.
So that's why they don't want you to do this. But a lot of people just don't expect the water to reach them. In an area like this, it's like, well, I wouldn't think it would reach me. It never has in the past. So
Right.
why is it doing it now?
That crosswalk is the Pinellas Trail. So
Okay.
this camera is across the street by the McDonald's,
Okay.
and there's that pirate. It's like a stop and go shop.
Gotcha.
In Palm Harbor, yeah.
Yep, and so that pole is probably sitting actually in more water than what they're standing in. But just to the right of the screen is looking northbound on Alt 19, and that's a very low-lying area. There we go. Now we're looking up towards Publix right there. That's the staging area. You can see all that. That's the Publix parking lot. If you look to the right up, that was the water tower that has the it looks like a sea turtle coming out of its shell. That on the right-hand side, you see another boat down there. See that? They're zooming in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
They've got another. Looks like they've got somebody else in the bow of that boat.
Yeah, and you can understand how people get trapped in water like
Right.
this. I don't know how deep it is. I mean, it looks like a couple feet there, but it's moving water, and
Right.
that's the scary part of it. It's difficult to stand sometime in moving water, and who knows where that moving water is taking you.
Right.
They're driving a boat with the motor in the water
Right.
on Alt 19, going in that direction. I think it's Pirates Cove is the marina down there.
trying to
That's a
look for you.
wild place because the low tides there, but they also get very high tides. And obviously you can see what they've got now. It gets dark, it gets deeper over there. There's a driving range on the left-hand side there, and that's looking towards Dunedin.
Right. So the causeway.
No. This is looking. Let me get bearings. That's looking
Yep.
south.
Okay.
That's looking south on Alt 19 right there, heading southbound. To the right would be the causeway going out to Honeymoon.
Got it.
If you just just went right to the right there.
Wow. You know, this is the live rescues that we're seeing right here in Palm Harbor this evening. Again, 11 o'clock right now. This is, you know, one of several that we know about in communities in different counties. And you imagine just how many more are going to happen throughout the evening and, of course, early morning hours. And it's dark. You're dealing with that surge on top of that, not being able to see. We've talked about the power outages.
Dark, dangerous. We've seen the Coast Guard rescue. We've heard from Eric Glasser in downtown Tampa. A lot of rescue units coming into TGH. We don't know what that's about, but certainly, you know, people have emergencies and people have health issues during these storms. Yeah, Chris Hurst talking about similar issues down there in terms of, you know, people need to be rescued. So it's. Unfortunately, these first responders, you know, there are medical calls that are even unrelated to the storm itself. So they're trying to get people to medical care as quickly as possible. But boy, we certainly appreciate the job they're doing.
I will point out, Dave, that's an evacuation zone. That's level A.
Is a level A. Okay.
And that's the reason why they were asked to evacuate. If you stay and you have some kind of medical issue, you've got to call 911. Those guys in those boats have families. And now they got to go get those people because they stayed.
Sure.
That's the idea, and some people don't understand that, and that's why we try and educate people that all year round to get ready for this time of the year. But again, who knows? Those people have been there forever because we haven't seen this.
Right, and people rationalize this, and I understand why they do. Some people want to stay in their homes because they're afraid maybe somebody will break in or somebody will take something. They want to keep an eye if the water is coming into the house. Maybe I can do something to protect or fortify my house while this is going on. The reality is, when you have this much water, there's virtually nothing you can do. Tampa General Hospital has that barrier there, but you know, the vapor barrier, which may help it from getting to the hospital. But as you saw, parking garage completely, you know, inundated with water. So water will go where it wants to go, and these folks are paying the price tonight, and I feel so badly for them. We also have tremendous number of power outages in our area.
And you can see we've seen power flickering
on and off. Yep, Duke Energy statewide, more than 300,000 at this point. TECO, about 95,000 right now, but you know those numbers are going to go up as this storm, you know, makes landfall to our north. It may not be as highly populated of an area as the Tampa Bay area, but there's still a lot of homes up there. And then it's going to move to the north. It's going to go into Georgia. It's going to go to Tennessee, Bobby, right?
Yep, Tennessee, the North Carolina mountains, 15 inches, and 10 to 15 inches of rain.
Even Ohio. It's going to hit Ohio.
It's raining in Ohio right now.
Yeah.
In South Ohio from the northern part of the storm.
Wow, a massive storm. So, and this is just.
Look at how it's. Oh, you can see it. The wind picking up right there.
Yeah, and you can understand how people could get stuck in there. It's like, I can't get out. And you know, I think people are oftentimes well-intentioned in staying in their homes. It may not be the smartest decision, but it's hard to make a decision during these storms for some people. It's very difficult to leave something that feels comfortable and safe.
Well, you know, and not even that. We don't know what the circumstances are, and I understand that. Like, you know, one of those rescues that we saw during Idalia in Hernando County, they were trying to leave. The car wouldn't start.
Right.
And then by the time they got it going, it was. They couldn't go forward. They couldn't go back. They got stuck. And looking at these, you know, like almost 1 million people without power in our state. This is a different.
This is US 19 as well, and
Dunellen.
Okay, and Dunellen. Okay.
Still a lot of wind there.
Yeah, you can really see the wind kind of whipping up the traffic light there on your right, and it's why people shouldn't be out on the roads tonight. It's just it is just a changing landscape. I mean, earlier this afternoon, when you compare, you know, people were out along Bayshore Boulevard and just taking it all in, out on the beach, and just really kind of enjoying this amazing experience of Mother Nature, and then suddenly it takes this dramatic turn and becomes not just a fun situation, really a dangerous situation.
And Aaron Parsegian is up in Citrus County for us. I was messaging with him earlier and kind of said there's not a ton going on right here, but it's a waiting game. You know, that water's going to come up. That water's going to come up quick. We've seen that happen. And here, that water pushed through, and you can see or maybe they're going to a different
headed back
location.
out.
Headed back out. I thought, okay, yeah.
Yeah, you wonder if they're, you just wonder how many people, are around there whose lives are impacted, business people and homeowners and everything else. I mean,
Really
it's just such a,
heartbreaking.
and this water, you think of all the vehicles involved here and all the cars that are going to be totaled and the people who are out that money, businesses that are out that money. It's just a rough time.
So one thing that happens on the backside of these storms when you get this kind of inundation is electrocutions.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's after the water has gone down. People trying to do the work in their house are trying to clear out that lower part of the drywall. You're just pulling things out, and I've seen almost every single storm when you get this kind of stuff. Somebody gets like that. So we urge everybody, please be careful after the storm. Animals, snakes, all kinds of things come out of the ground when this is going on. They're going to be running around too. It affects them. So it's going to be a big cleanup. And I tell you what, guys, I would bet that I think most people didn't see this coming.
Right.
No,
Well, sure.
Didn't expect. It's hard. You can't picture it.
Well, since it's never happened,
Right.
really,
Right.
like
You
this.
can't picture
The other thing I might mention, you talk about the predators that end up in the water. There are predators who will prey upon you
Yes.
to take advantage of you after the storm. It's really important to make sure that you do not sign any contracts. You can vet them through the state of Florida. They will help you. They will help you. If you go online, state of Florida, the chief financial officer's website, go to that, and there will be a way for you to contact them to verify whether or not there's a legitimate contractor. But do not sign anything. Don't agree to any repairs unless you are fully confident of the person you're dealing with.
Yeah, and on that note, the Florida legislature has taken action on that and made it that assignment of benefits, which was something that we saw over and over and over happening in all of these storms, so that it prohibits policyholders from assigning those to a third party. So that's illegal now. But you do have to be in that for that specific thing, the assignment of benefits. But there's a lot of different things that happen. Where are we going now?
Well, we're going to talk about the sewage issue in Northeast St. Pete.
Yeah, let me. Here, I can pull this up if you know.
Yeah, I mean, right now we've gotten a message from the city of St. Pete that because of the storm surge, the high storm surge, this is what they're saying: the Northeast sewage plant is offline. It affects everyone. This is north of 30th Avenue North and east of I-275 Haynes Road. So tell them what you shouldn't be doing.
So you can still, drink the water from your faucets,
Right.
but when it comes to flushing your toilets, taking a bath, doing your laundry, all of that, and you can see all of those things, do not do that because that sewage is just going to come right back up into your house. So again, the drinking water not shut off, but do not drain water in your home. And this is for individuals and businesses really north of 30th Avenue, northeast of 275 Haynes Road.
That's a ton of people. I mean, it's such a highly concentrated area, and I mean it's easier said than done. I mean, for people,
That impacts our station, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
Impacts
it
our
should.
station right
It should.
there.
So, you're really unable to do so many of the things that you take for granted. So it's almost going to take, you almost have to kind of seal off the toilet and everything else to make sure that you're not going to cause problems.
We heard Mayor Ken Welch talk about that earlier, about the possibility of this happen. Just kidding, we don't have that sound. But again, something that you want to keep in mind, not just if you're in St. Pete, but that's great advice for
We
others.
want to go to the governor who is talking right now. Let's take him live.
In the Big Bend section of Florida, Deckle Beach. It is a Category 4 storm with maximum sustained winds of 140 miles per hour. It is moving northeast at 24 mile per hour. Hurricane force winds are extending up to 60 miles from the center of the storm, and tropical storm force winds are extending 300 miles from the center of the storm. I'm joined here, of course, by Kevin Guthrie, the Division of Emergency Management Executive Director, as well as Dave Kerner, Executive Director of the Florida Highway Patrol. We have had a report of a fatality on the roadway. Car driving on I-4 near Ybor City in Tampa was hit when a sign fell onto the highway. So that just shows you that it's very dangerous conditions out there. You need to be right now just hunkering down. Now is not the time to be going out. Not only are we seeing it hit landfall here in northern Florida, you're still seeing surge and water rising in parts of Florida far south from the Big Bend area. So you look at southwest Florida, you look at the Tampa Bay area, you're seeing really significant amounts of surge. There's going to be streets that are flooded and will continue to flood all up and down the west coast of Florida. So it's hazardous conditions right now, and please, do not be going outside until things settle down. We know that travel on the roads can be hazardous, and we typically, unfortunately, will have fatalities in every storm from that. When you are out on the roads in the middle of one of these storms, that is very, very dangerous. So please do not do that. Stay put. Also, if you're sheltering in place, know your surroundings in terms of trees. You are going to see trees that are going to get knocked down. I'm sure some have already been knocked down. But you have these 140-mile-an-hour winds hitting here in North Florida. This is going to extend. I mean, you're going to have hurricane-force winds that are going to extend across a couple counties to the east and west of Taylor County. And that's going to cause trees to fall down. If you are in an area where you have that, please take precautions there. Treat it almost like a tornado as that's going by you for there. We have many major bridges that have been closed throughout today at various points. Most of the major bridges, of course, in places like Tampa Bay have been closed, and they will be open as soon as it's safe to reopen them. We have FDOT, they're standing by. As soon as it's safe, they're going to go in there, do the inspections, and get those bridges open again. You may, if you're here in North Florida, you may have a period of calm when you are in the eye of the storm. Just understand that storm is not done, and it's very, very hazardous to go out for there, especially with how fast this storm is moving. You're going to be putting yourself in jeopardy if you try to go out in the middle of the eye wall of the storm. We are going to see down power lines. Those are very hazardous as well. Please do not mess with any down power lines in and around your home or anywhere you may come in contact with them. Also, be very careful about standing water. People get up in the morning when it's light out. There's going to be standing water in a lot of parts of this state. Don't go trudging through that. There's going to be a lot of hazards that could be in there, and just please be mindful of that. The storm is going to pass, and when it does pass, you're going to have still going to be dark outside. Do not go out in the pitch black trying to navigate any debris or anything. That's just not going to be the safe thing to do. Wait till you get light and you can take stock of what's going on in your property and govern accordingly from there. When you're using ladders, please be safe with that. We do have fatalities involving people climbing on ladders, trying to get to their roofs and falling, and that happens almost every storm. Please just be very careful with that. And also, of course, there's going to be an enormous amount of debris in various places, and you could have down power lines, you could have dangerous objects. Just be very careful when you're around the debris. Also, be careful about using a generator. Do not use a generator inside your house. There have been power outages. There's going to be more power outages. You can use a generator, but make sure you're running it outside your home. Keep it away from windows and keep it away from the doors. We have not had fatalities in the more recent storms with misuse of generators, but that has happened in the past, and this is something that's very much avoidable. So the state is ready as soon as this storm passes and it's safe to do so. To commence search and rescue operations. We have 3,500 National Guardsmen standing by. We have our state guards standing by. We have state troopers standing by, and they will be active if need be. And I know we have a lot of our local first responders are going to be ready to be able to be on scene as well as needed. We're also going to be ready for road clearing. There is going to be debris on the roads. We want to get these roads open. We want to make sure that people can travel safely. And so our Florida Department of Transportation is standing by for cut and toss operations, and those will begin as soon as it's safe to do so. They're also going to go in and inspect the bridges so we can ensure they're safe and can be reopened. They have 40 large pumps to be able to pump water out of areas that have flooded, as well as almost 700 generators. And then, of course, another mission is going to be power restoration. We have tens of thousands of linemen that are standing by. I think people have seen some of the pictures that we've seen from TECO, from Duke Energy, from FP&L, and they are going to be on scene probably as soon as it's light outside in the morning. And so you'll have all day Friday, a full day worth of power restoration. I think they're going to get a lot done. Obviously, we're going to have to navigate this debris, and hopefully they're going to be able to have easy access to these power lines. But this is a priority to be able to get the power restored as quickly as possible. And then we're also standing by to help with disaster supplies for people that need them. We have meals ready to eat, of course, the water mission, bottled water, Starlink internet devices, fuel for folks who may need fuel. So that all is standing by and ready to be done. And there'll be a lot more that is going to be done as circumstances warrant. If you need assistance, non-emergency assistance after the storm, you can call the State Assistance Information Line at 1-800-342-3557. Now, this is not for emergencies. If you are in a situation where it's emergency, you make the normal emergency calls. This is for non-emergency assistance involving the aftermath of the storm, and we urge you to call that number if you need help. So we are here. We're going to face the storm in Tallahassee. I think we're on the west side of the storm, but I think the winds are actually going to be very, very significant. And even though the eye of the storm has entered into Taylor County, you are absolutely going to see major, major gusts in Jefferson County, in Wakulla County, in Leon County. That's going to happen. So we'll be here at the EOC through that process. And then when it's safe to kind of be liberated from here, we're going to be out and about surveying the damage and coordinating the response. With that, I will bring up Kevin Guthrie.
Thank you, Governor. Hurricane Helene is, as the governor mentioned, is currently making landfall in the Big Bend area of Florida. Please shelter in place, as the governor has said. Stay indoors. Again, I like his analogy of treat this like a tornado right now. Again, those individuals along Deckle Beach, maybe even as close to Steinhatchee, you're probably seeing very, very clear skies right now. That's because you're in the eye of the hurricane. If you can hear us and you have power, please do not go outside. That eye wall is going to close on the back side momentarily, probably within the next 15 to 30 minutes as it continues to make landfall. So please stay indoors. Roads are dangerous due to the flooding, debris, potential downlines. Do not risk it. We have numerous roads that FHP and DOT are responding to now that are underwater, and we do not want anybody to drive through that. So please, again, turn around, do not drown. You never know what's underneath that roadway. If you are hearing trees snapping in your area, take immediate shelter. Go to an interior room away from windows and doors, most likely an interior bathroom. Close the doors and get as low as you possibly can. If you lose power and use the generator, do safely and never indoors, as the governor's already indicated. Once the storm passes, listen to your local authorities for updates. There may be situations where it's not safe for you to return back to your home. You can call ahead. You can talk to your local sheriff's office, your local police department, and see if they have anything that may be dangerous to where your area cannot actually be accessed. There's nothing more frustrating than coming back into an area after a disaster and you can't actually make it to your home. So call ahead and see if the area is accessible before you spend all the time in traffic trying to get back to your residence. Do not attempt to clean up hazardous debris or down power lines. Make sure you report the damage to local authorities. If you have damage, make sure you're calling your local emergency management agency or local 911 center. Please do not mess with power lines that are wrapped up in trees. If you do need assistance, as the governor said, you can call the state assistance information line, 1-800-342-3557. Again, that's 1-800-342-3557. We have talked about this in just about every press conference we've done, but do not do dangerous things after the disaster. If you need help, we will send you help. If you need help, your local county emergency management agency will send you the help. We have folks like Team Rubicon, the Southern Baptist Disaster Relief, the Methodist, the Catholic Charities, Salvation Army, United Way. All of these agencies will come and help you take the debris off your house. They will help you take the debris out of your yard. They will get on ladders themselves with people that are trained to do so. And that is free of charge. Don't take the risk. Use the free assistance. You can always follow us at floridadisaster.org/updates for latest information, or you can follow us at FLSERT on X and Instagram, and on Facebook at FDEM and for real-time updates. And again, thank you very much, Governor.
So this is a big storm. It's a powerful Category 4 storm, but it's also just very large, and it's going to have impacts are being felt, have been felt, and will continue to be felt far and wide. And so when Floridians wake up tomorrow morning, we're going to be waking up to a state where very likely there's been additional loss of life, and certainly there's going to be loss of property. You're going to have people that are going to lose their homes because of this storm. And so please keep those folks in mind, keep them in your prayers. We've got a lot of folks here that have been lined up, ready, mobilized for days now, ready to go and provide support. Kevin listed some of the nonprofit groups that are going to be here. Of course, the local officials and the local emergency response folks, first responders, they're going to be there. So there's going to be a lot of assistance that's going to be brought to bear. But the reality is, a storm of this magnitude, it leaves a lot of damage in its wake. And so I don't think we're necessarily getting the full pictures of it right now, just because so much of the impact has been in the nighttime and will continue through the wee hours of the morning. But I think when we get the sunlight back up and people are able to go out and take stock, you're going to see some serious damage. So it's not anything that we can't handle as a state. We're very good at being gritting through this stuff, and we know that's just part of life when you live in a tropical climate, but it is going to be difficult for an awful lot of people. So everyone that's been involved, thank you. Everyone out there offering your thoughts and prayers, thank you as well. Okay, any questions? Yes.
What's your reaction seeing the storm in Taylor County?
All right, you were hearing from Governor Ron DeSantis right there. Hurricane Helene, as a powerful Cat 4 making landfall in the Big Bend area around 11:10, so in the past 20 minutes.
Yeah, the governor talked about there being one confirmed fatality. They expect there probably will be more. That was the person who was killed after a sign fell on them on I-4. A motorist fell on them and killed them there. The roads are dangerous, the governor mentioned. There are water problems, there is debris on the roads, and also be aware of down power lines and the danger of electrocution. We talked about that earlier, but the governor certainly underscored that tonight. The storm has moved its way out into the northern part of Florida, out of our area, but we are still very much feeling the effects right now.
Yeah, and you talked about the hurricane force winds extending 60 miles from the center. So many rescues happening in the state, including this one that you are watching live right now. This is alternate 19 Curlew Road in Palm Harbor. You can see law enforcement's lights flashing right there, so it's a little bit difficult to see exactly what's happening, but bringing people off. We've seen now, I think, two or three of these in this specific area, and we know that others are happening. You can see an animal right there, a dog. I don't know if that's a rescue dog or if that's their dog that was rescued as well, probably a family pet. But again, what you're seeing right here, one of just many, and I'm just glad that these people are okay.
Well, and just grateful that you look at that vehicle right there that's able to get across water there. You're just grateful for the first responders in this community who really risk their lives, and you see a person walking out right there. Boy, that is scary. Again, we mentioned that Hurricane Helene made landfall in the Big Bend area. Bobby, you predicted that it would land, and certainly other forecasters did with the National Hurricane Center in that particular area, but it landed with a punch.
With a punch. 140-mile-per-hour winds was the landfall wind speed up near Perry, Florida. You can see right now it's north-northeast at 24 miles per hour, and the pressure's still 38, and it's over land. It will be weakening, though, as we go through the next several hours as it's moving off towards the north. So let's take it a little bit further to the north here. Colleen, could you just, I don't know why that one won't advance on me. There is the loop now. You can see we're still left over with some of this rain. Maybe my clicker's dying on me here. Look at this. I mean, that's the radar coming out of Tallahassee. Look at that side right there. That's the very, very heavy rainfall that's pushing through that area right now. That has the most wind in it, okay? I just looked at Tallahassee. They've got winds in the 30s with gusts in the 40s. This has gone just to the east of them. Now, they'll get a little bit more wind than that because but if you notice, look how these cells are not moving all that fast versus how fast these cells are on the east side of it. So they got very lucky to be on that west side of it, and that will continue. I do expect this to be weakening. There are the official numbers right now. Landfall at the Osceola River mouth, but that's about 10 miles west-southwest of Perry. 938 was the pressure. That's exactly where we still are at. This was at 1110, so it was just a little bit ago, about 20 minutes ago that it did this. Now, think about this town, Scanlon, up towards Cabbage Grove. Look at the way that they're positioned, and that northern eye wall went over them, and then because it's moving north-northeast, they're in the northwest eye wall, and they will basically stay in the western eye wall and then even get the southwestern part of it. Now, that's not as bad as the eastern side of it, but it just came in to happened to give them one heck of a ride right there with a very heavy rainfall on top of that. So that will continue. This thing is just not working anymore. There's the Tallahassee radar. You can see that it is looking pretty good right now as far as the winds go, but very heavy rainfall is still pushing across the area, and that will continue. Is that it over there? There we go. Looking for these clickers here. This is good news for that area because we really thought they were going to get hit a lot harder than that, and fortunately they have not. Look at this up in the Valdosta, Georgia. I mean, that's heavy rainfall, and here comes the northern eye wall. It won't have 140-mile-per-hour winds by the time it gets there, but 80, 90, sure. They will get some wind gusts in the 80s to 90s out there. And in the bigger picture, you can see the rain extending. Notice what we were talking about earlier, the rain extending all the way up to Ohio. It's kind of run into an old boundary sitting up there. But look at these cells that are out here across southeast Georgia into South Carolina. Those could produce tornadoes, and there are tornado watches in that area. For us, we're still keeping an eye on the wind because the wind's still blowing. 52-mile-per-hour wind gusts in Tampa, 49 in Clearwater. We're getting ready to show you some of the water levels. They are still rising in some areas, but should be cresting here shortly. I'm telling you, there is a lot going on down in Anna Maria Island and Longboat Key. We need to say prayers for those people. I've got reports of people swimming from house to get to two-story houses right now. So it's not good. It's not good at all. 49-mile-per-hour wind gusts at Clearwater. 46 at, this is working, thank you. 46 up at Brooksville. 26 at Crystal River. Crystal River's winds down, but that's going to stay high for a little bit. 23 in Wauchula, and we've got 44 in the Lakeland area. So Sebring around 22-mile-per-hour winds. We have just seen nothing as far as wind goes out in Sebring. There are the wind gust forecasts as we go through the overnight hours here. Midnight, we're still in the 40-50 range through about 1 o'clock, and then after that, we will be pushing those winds slowly down. They're not dropping right off. And these are just the gusts, so the steady wind will be less than that. But also notice this wind direction, southwest, 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 southwest. That holds the water in. It will slowly come down. It won't be as high as what it is now, but it's going to take all night for that water to slowly drain.
All right, Bobby, thanks very much. We are following a situation in St. Petersburg right now involving the Northeast Sewage Treatment Plant facility in St. Pete that was shut down to protect it from storm surge. That has caused some complications for residents in that area, what they can and cannot do. We have Yolanda Fernandez from the city of St. Pete on the phone with us right now. Yolanda, can you hear us?
Yes.
All right. Yolanda, this was a real possibility. You all discussed it before. And now when we look at this, I mean, people really don't need to be draining any water. They can still drink it, though.
Yes. No, this is a very serious situation, and this is not a decision that the city made lightly. Unfortunately, in order to preserve that plant so that people can have sewage, service after the storm, they're just going to have to suffer for a couple of days, and our crews are standing by to try to do everything they can to fix it. But the fact is that the plant is shut down, and if you live north of 30th Avenue North and east of I-275 in that part of the city, in the northeast section of the city, you do not have sewage service, which means you still have potable water. Clean water will still come out of your faucets, but you can't let anything go down the drain. If you flush your toilet, the possibility is very high that sewage will come back up into your home. And then you've got a big problem. And we're trying to alert people. We waited until the very last minute to make this decision, and so at this late hour, we're trying to notify as many people as possible.
Yolanda, we know this is an inconvenience for a lot of folks here, but it's an important thing for people to know about and do and comply with. How will people know when it is safe, when you've remedied this problem?
We will be sending out a reverse 911 call. We've already done that to 80,000 people to alert them of this. We will be sending out social media, and hopefully through assistance through you guys, we can get the word out. We do believe it's going to take some time because we have to wait for that water to recede in order to send our crews back out to see if there's any saltwater intrusion or damage to the facility. And then it's a process to bring it back online. So right now we're looking at a minimum of 48 hours. We're thinking, I mean, we don't have experience with this. Our crews have never seen this. We believe the last time this may have happened was in 1985. So this is not, and it's not just affecting those folks who are in flooded areas. It's affecting people who are high and dry.
And Yolanda, apologies if you already talked about this, but this is a power issue that's knocked it offline, and we just don't know if it's from surge or wind or a combination.
No, we no, it's not a power surge. It's a situation where we're trying to avoid, because the storm surge has come up so high at the plant that we're trying to prevent it from salt water getting into those sensitive electronics. Because once salt water gets into those sensitive batteries and electronics, then that plant could go offline for who knows how long, and that we can't afford to do that.
So you all have taken it offline to be proactive. Okay.
Yeah,
yes, made the decision to deal with a couple of days without sewage service versus a long-term problem, a long-term issue. This is not affecting the other two plants in the city. They're on higher ground. But unfortunately for that third, it's a full third of the city that we're looking at. Anywhere between 25 and 30% of the residents here are going to have to be dealing with this. And this is on top of some folks who are going to be seeing flood damage, because we have several neighborhoods that are impassable from flood waters that we haven't even been able to get into to see how bad it is.
Well, let me ask you, Yolanda, do you know how many people, I know this affects a large portion of the city, do you know how many homes and businesses are impacted by this sewage situation?
We can't give you an exact number. We think it's possible around 70,000 people, maybe 25% of the population, maybe a little bit less. But it is going to affect businesses as well as schools, churches, residents, any structure that has sewage service from the city in that part of the city.
Yeah, I want to follow
north of 30th Avenue North all the way to Gandy, and then east of Interstate 275 out to the Bay.
Yeah, huge area, a lot of homes in there and a lot of businesses, as you mentioned here. I want to follow up on something you mentioned about other areas being inundated with water. Are you able to share what some of those areas are that you've been hearing about? I understand that crews may not have been able to get into those areas yet and assess the damage, but what neighborhoods are we talking about?
Well, pretty much that level A evacuation zone. Any of those homes along the bay side is what we're seeing. Shore Acres, Snell Isle, Venetian Isles, Coquina Key. Those are the areas that we ask people to evacuate. Those are the areas that traditionally are low-lying. Some of them have seen water in the roads, or some of them have had, home damage in the past. Those are the areas that we're seeing that have been impacted. And so it's going to be a while before that water completely recedes in order for us to be able to get our teams back in there and see what the damage is. It could be late morning. So we're asking people to be patient. We're not going to be able to allow people back into their homes until we know it's safe.
Yolanda, the areas that you have been able to get to, what are your crews seeing? What are you seeing with homeowners, roadways?
We've seen a lot of flooded roads. We've had to completely close the bridges off to some neighborhoods like Shore Acres and Snell Isle, allowing people to leave, but not allowing people to go back in. Water so high that SUVs and high water vehicles are no longer able to get in. So this is going to, we're going to be taking John boats, the fire department, fire rescue will be dealing with that in the morning. And we know there are people that are stuck in their homes and are stuck in flooded homes, but at this point it's too late for us to be able to go out and rescue them. We have to wait until conditions are safe.
Yolanda, for those folks who, and I know you've worked with the police department for some time here, for those folks who are concerned about their homes being looted or burglarized, that type of thing, people who evacuated, what kind of precautions has the city taken to assure people that there's not going to be widespread problems like that? I take it that's something you all have talked about and are attempting at least to keep that limited, right?
Yes, absolutely. We've had directed patrols. We have had a large police presence in all of those areas, and we have officers blocking off roads to access those areas. So especially now, once the waters start receding in the morning, we will have a large presence there to try to keep anything like that from happening.
So you all are basically...
We have to wait until some of those floodwaters recede before we can really get into some of those areas. And it could take some time for those waters to go back, because it's not just rainwater. We're talking, this is a storm surge. So that bay has to empty back out, and it's going to take a while. This has been a lot of water. We haven't seen water like this, 5 to 8 feet of storm surge, and it's holding true. The prediction is holding true.
Yeah.
Yolanda, and we knew that this was there's a lot of preparations that happened. Was there anything that the city was able to do differently with this amount of water for these communities?
No, the city has been working with these communities now for quite some time, and many repairs and pumps and all kinds of repairs have been made and upgrades have been made to many areas. But the fact is, there's no way that you can stop the Gulf. You can stop the bay when you've got an 8-foot storm surge. And it may not have gotten that high in some places, but 4, 5, 6 feet of storm surge still does significant damage to many of these homes.
Yolanda, we really appreciate you being with us. I know for many years you were on the anchor desk like we are right here. Did a terrific job when you were on the news side of it, and you're doing a great job with the city of St. Pete in keeping us up to date. We greatly appreciate it under really difficult circumstances, you spending time with us.
Well, thank you, and thank you for helping us to get the word out.
You bet. All right, take care. We'll be in touch.
All right. Yolanda Fernandez with the city of St. Pete taking time to talk with us about an issue that is very, very serious. Again, it could be 48 hours or more. The Northeast water treatment plant taken offline to be proactive and to make sure that there wasn't more damage done. So about 70,000, maybe more, churches, businesses, schools, homeowners. You just can't drain the water in your home. You can use the drinking water, but you cannot drain that. So that's no, don't flush the toilet because it will back right back up into your home.
You can't shower, you can't do your laundry, you can't do all those things. David Shealy is in Tarpon Springs. He's been keeping an eye on things there. David, what a mess in Tarpon Springs. You were down at the sponge docks. I'm not sure where you are right now, but our hearts go out to the people of Tarpon Springs who are really dealing with a mess, and they will see, in full scope what that mess is tomorrow.
Absolutely, and we are right now in a condominium complex right by the Klosterman Bayou in the Gulf of Mexico, and as you said, it is a mess, and mess might be an understatement. It is flooded here on this street. I can't give you an exact number as to how high it is, but I want to give you a visual of a mailbox that is on this street, and you can see that the water has almost submerged that mailbox. That mailbox is just kind of peeking up above the water, just to give you an idea of how high the waters are here. And we go back to that word mess. There's all kinds of things in the water. We've seen light bulbs, pillows, there's a gym mat right there, all kinds of things floating in the water. And that's why we've been saying throughout the evening, throughout the night, this is not the type of water to go and play in. Don't try to drive through the water, don't walk in the water, don't swim in the water, don't drink the water, because you don't know what's in this water. Tarpon Springs police said that they have reports of live wires going down into the water. So you definitely want to stay out of the waters when there's power lines down inside water here. So right now it's not as windy as it was earlier. It's not raining as of right now, but we've seen flooding in this neighborhood. We've seen flooding by the docks, and we're going to keep eye on if there's any floodwaters anywhere else. But there has been some flooding that's gone up to about waist deep and even higher in some areas here.
Are in that area there. Are we talking homes in the area, businesses? What does it look like?
Yes, so we've seen businesses flooded right by the sponge docks. Those businesses have been flooded over there for a little bit. We talked to one business owner a little bit ago, and he said water never enters his business. It does not flood his business. It always just has water on the sidewalk. And for the first time since he's been a business owner right by the sponge docks, there is water inside of his business right now. So he's dealing with that situation, won't be able to get the full scope of what's going on until daylight tomorrow or possibly later, but he can tell as of right now that there is water inside of the business that he owns by the sponge docks. In terms of homes, this is a complex. This is a neighborhood where people live, and if we're seeing water go up to the level of a mailbox, then we would have to conclude that there possibly is water inside of the home. So we hope the people have evacuated. You probably can't hear it through the microphone, but we do hear car alarms going off in the background. So there is a chance that some people have left their cars here or might still be here and may need to get help getting out. But we do hope that the people that are here are safe and they have evacuated, because again, the waters are about waist deep.
Wow.
Yeah. They're going to be, David, thank you. There's going to be a lot of unfortunate firsts, right?
Yeah.
First time that a business is flooded, first time that someone has seen this amount of water, first time having to deal with, their homes. And so that, and we're here every step of the way helping you through that. One thing I do want to talk about, he talked about the car alarms.
Yes.
And this is really important. When we talk about, a lot of people have electric vehicles now, and you have those lithium-ion batteries. In this situation, you have that, it can corrode that battery, it can start a fire very quickly, a fire that then is thermal runaway. So it burns very hot, it's very difficult for firefighters to put out, and you want to make sure that that's not happening in your home. If you have an electric vehicle, if it has been damaged by salt water, if there's been saltwater intrusion, do not start that vehicle. You want to make sure that it gets towed and removed. Don't try and start that and move that away.
It can happen days after
Yes.
the water intrusion
right.
Also keep in mind that's true with bicycles, anything with a lithium-ion battery. So keep that in mind. That's something to keep in mind. Not everybody has that, but you might have a tool. You might have a
hoverboard,
a bike, a scooter, whatever it happens to be. Just keep that in mind. If it's had contact with salt water, that's particularly dangerous.
We do have a rescue that we want to get to right now. Braden 10. This home was right on the water before the Manatee Avenue Bridge. I think a couple here. This is some video of it. Oh my gosh! Look inside. This is inside of their house. Look at all of that water, that surge coming in.
Right around the Manatee Avenue Bridge that goes into Holmes Beach right here. And
wow.
what a
This is from the second
you know,
floor,
and again, you know, we talk about evacuation, but not everybody does that. And there are a variety of reasons. Sometimes people's health prevents them from evacuating easily. Sometimes people's pets, they stay because they have pets, or they have, you know, difficult circumstances, or they can't afford a hotel, or they don't feel comfortable in a shelter. Whatever it is, people do stay behind, and this happens during every storm. And unfortunately, you know, some of these people have to be rescued. But
this is from a balcony.
Yeah, we're sure hoping that, you know, everybody's fine in there. But it's a scary scene when you see this kind of rushing water in there, and it's tremendously dangerous as well.
And you can see that, you know, this is video from one home. It was a couple who had to be rescued, again, in Bradenton. This is before the Manatee Avenue Bridge that goes to Holmes Beach. And look at all of the other houses there as well, experiencing the same water.
And this is just
rushing through.
one thing that we have video of. You know,
Yes,
you just wonder how many times this is repeated across our area. Yolanda Fernandez with the City of St. Pete talked about Shore Acres. She talked about Snell Island. And, you know, those areas are used to getting some water, but not so much. Well, Shore Acres, to a certain extent, you know, has experienced a lot of water incursion in homes, but not as much in places like Snell Island. And, you know, it's I'm sure, shocking to those who live in those areas.
And there are areas that we just cannot see because there's no access there. Anna Maria is one of those areas, Longboat Key, and I know that we're working on that right now, trying to get some information. And Bobby Deskins shared with us some of the information. He said Anna Maria is just got hit really, really hard. A lot of people in a lot of hurt.
Yeah,
there.
you mentioned that person even
Yeah.
swimming from one building to another or whatever. Aaron Parsegian is in Crystal River for us right now. That's an area that's been hard hit. We've seen a fair amount of flooding there. Aaron, give us an update on what you're seeing.
Well, Dave and Courtney, if I remember, you last checked in with us about an hour ago. And then since that point, we've seen some of the worst wind we've seen in this area thus far. Of course, I'm standing right outside Kings Bay here in downtown Crystal River. This is the area of concern when we're starting to talk about storm surge that could be coming over the next few hours and early tomorrow morning. That water level has risen quite a bit in the past hour or so. If I pull out my flashlight here, you can see this water was below this wall pretty significantly. Now this wind is blowing these waves and water is starting to pool up right about here. We're going to be watching this area closely, of course, because as you mentioned, this is a place no stranger to flooding. Hurricane Idalia over a year ago brought 7-foot storm surge, damaging homes and businesses in this area. Now we're projecting that type of storm surge or possibly larger as we approach early in the morning. So it could do some damage. And this has kind of been our landmark of sorts, this seawall. We were told by some of the locals in this area that once it starts breaching the seawall totally is when we should start making our way out of here. We've about 15 minutes because it can really start to collect quick.
And Aaron, have you seen people coming down there trying to check it out? Have you been able to talk with folks throughout this?
Well, early this afternoon when conditions were a little less, we were talking to many people out here just out and about trying to see what impacts there would be from Hurricane Helene. That's not the case now. The only people really out and about besides the news crews are sheriff's deputies making sure people stay away from this area for the most part, because now it's starting to get a little more hairy as far as the concerns with the storm surge and some of the water beginning to rise here in Kings Bay.
Yeah, it is so tough to see at night. That is the challenge. It's awfully dark out there, and there are a lot of power outages as well, so difficult for drivers to know exactly what they're driving into. I want to take a live look at Bay Pines. This is a picture at Bay Pines. This is at 95th Street North in Seminole right here. We have seen flooded roads in this area, and we've also seen several cars pull up to the flooding and turn around. That's obviously what you want to do. That's the right approach to it. Sometimes you don't know until you're actually in those floodwaters sometimes. So take it slow. You know, the best thing right now is to stay out of there. Yolanda Fernandez with the City of St. Pete talked about how, you know, they have police officers stationed to prevent people from getting in neighborhoods and getting in trouble. And some of those neighborhoods are just underwater right now.
And right here, very important that we're sharing this with you. This is the Bay. This is
Veterans Hospital.
Right. So this is right there in St. Petersburg and Seminole, and thankfully we're not seeing any cars there currently.
Right. Well, and
there's flooding.
And I don't know if they're being kept off that road. Hopefully they are. But the law enforcement is, I'm sure, spread thin at this hour, trying to, because there's so many areas that need to be blocked off that they just probably don't have enough manpower right now.
Our producer is saying that yes, they have seen, as they've been watching this, they have seen cars that have been pulling up and then they have had to turn around. Look, if you're in need of medical care, if you're a veteran, please be aware right now that there is a lot of water, a lot of flooding right here. Again, Bay Pines at 95th Street in Seminole at the Veterans Hospital, VA.
Let's check out what's going on in Tampa right now. Eric Glasser standing by live. Oh, let's take a live look if we can right now. Just a lot. This is wow. This is Tampa, and are we? Where in Tampa are we? Okay.
So.
Yeah, we're just looking at really kind of brutal winds and real downpours. This is what happens in hurricanes, where you've got a lull, and then you've got high winds, and that is, I believe, Eric Glasser there, who is keeping an eye on this. Hopefully, he can hear us. Can you hear us, Eric?
Ish, if you can hear, can you just pan over?
Can you hear me? Okay.
We can.
We can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. We are in the middle, as you can clearly see, of one of the gusts that comes through. A ton of rain falling right now in South Tampa. If you look down the road from where I am, I'm on Manhattan Avenue, and we are just north of Euclid, and you can just see the sheets of rain as they move across the water that is already sitting in this area. I promised you a little bit earlier, since we were downtown for a while, showing you Bayshore and areas around South Tampa, Davis Islands, that we would eventually move our way a little bit west. We have done that. Again, this is Manhattan, so people are very familiar with that. It runs from about the middle part of South Tampa all the way down to Gandy, and then obviously south of that. This is what we're seeing all over the place when it comes to the amount of rain that's fallen on the west side of Tampa right now. I know that you guys had asked a little bit earlier. Courtney, I know you asked, well, what does it look like over on West? It's a mess. That's what it is. It is a mess everywhere on this side of the bay right now. A lot of it looks like what you are seeing. When we first got here, the light post that you see right there, that was dry. That's where we were standing. And in the short period of time that we've been standing here, we've had to move back because the water has continued to rise. So there continues to be storm surge, but then every once in a while we get one of these squall lines that moves through, and it's adding insult to injury because it's dropping rain in an area that is not draining off right now. So it just keeps building up on it. This area has also become prime real estate for people who are, well, more or less doing what we tell them to do, which is to turn around when there's deep water. But you can see it's kind of dark here. And so what's happening is that people are reaching this part because Manhattan's a busy road, and they're moving along. And then when they get to right about here, they have to hit the brakes because they realize, uh-oh, there's standing water there. It's not particularly well lit. And that's the same for a lot of the side streets. I can tell you in this part of South Tampa, there have been power outages. And so that's a big problem also. Dark streets, power outages, and flooding. So hopefully there's not too many people out and about right now, as it continues to get later. But we have seen plenty of cars that have gotten to this area and done again as we have told them to do, which is when they get to that water to turn around. Some have tried to make their way through. The fire department was here for a little while, keeping an eye on a couple of folks who had kind of had trouble getting through there. They've since moved on. But again, you asked, we traveled over here so that we could show you this. This is very typical of what's going on right now in the west side of Tampa. Every place from West Shore Boulevard over to Manhattan and then south has a lot of standing water tonight. And again, just based upon what we're seeing, before this rain started to fall, this was coming up. This was continuing to rise. So for at least another hour or so, I would guess that you're going to continue to see the tide come up, the surge come up, and then every once in a while when we get one of those squalls that moves through here like that last one did, again, it's going to add a little bit of insult to injury and just a little bit more water on top of it, guys. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hear you, but I'm going to toss it back to you.
But it seems like north-south, really, you've got Dale, Mabry, and Himes at this.
For the ones who know safety isn't a catchphrase, it's a culture. And the ones who help make sure everyone makes it home safe. For the safety-minded who watch everyone's backs, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry, as well as safety assessments and training to keep your facilities safe and your people safer. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
At a level 1 full activation here at the EOC. So we have representation from our power companies with Lacucci and Duke. We have representation from our school district partners, Sheriff's Office, Fire Rescue, Health Department, the City of Brooksville. You name it, everybody's in the house, and everybody's here at the table contributing to the conversation with public safety, life safety at the forefront of mind.
Well, thank you so much. And we were just speaking about emergency rescues. Fortunately, in Hernando County, although we have seen some of those emergency rescues happening in more southern counties, you have fortunately not had to deploy first responders for any emergency rescues here. We will, of course, be continuing to monitor things with the folks making the decisions here in Hernando County in Brooksville. Hannah Deneen, 10 Tampa Bay.
Well, thanks for that update, Hannah. We're also keeping an eye on where this storm is headed, and it's headed to our north here. Believe it or not, they're going to feel potentially hurricane-force winds as far north as Atlanta, which is just a remarkable thing to think about here. This is a live look at Atlanta right now. Doesn't look particularly windy there right now, but it's a little tough to tell. But you certainly see it raining out there. This is courtesy of EarthCam.
Yeah, and you know, looking when we saw the hurricane watch, the hurricane warnings, looking at Atlanta, it's just, this kind of underscores just how massive this hurricane is and how far it stretches. You know, we heard the governor said 60 miles from the center, hurricane force winds, 300 miles out, tropical storm force winds, 350 miles out. That is, it's really, this is a historic hurricane. I mean, this is a historic storm. This is something that, you know, we haven't seen. Every storm's different, but the expanse of this, wow. Yeah. And again, Atlanta getting ready to feel, and you can kind of see right there on the radar, like where that's spanning currently. They're getting ready for it as well. We saw Georgia taking preps in the Valdosta area as well.
And the storm came ashore not long ago, but with 140-mile-an-hour winds up in the Big Bend area. We want to show you what it was like there in Crawfordville, south of Tallahassee, when this storm came ashore.
The full brunt of Helene is now pushing right up against Florida's Big Bend. Fall along Florida's Big Bend region, barreling on shore with damaging winds as forecasters warn of a catastrophic storm surge.
It is currently making landfall in Taylor County in the Big Bend section of Florida, Deckle Beach. It is a Category 4 storm with maximum sustained winds of 140 miles per hour.
Strong gusts of wind and heavy rain moved across the Orlando area Thursday. Residents throughout much of the state and large parts of the southeast braced for dangerous storm surge that could hit as high as 20 feet.
Any storm that comes through the area, it's something that's very worrisome, only because you don't know how far the water will come up.
The director of the National Hurricane Center described the expected storm surge along Florida's northwestern coastline as, quote, a really unsurvivable scenario. Early flooding hit waterfront neighborhoods in St. Petersburg. Here in Crawfordville, in northwest Florida, the wind really starting to pick up now, and this is a place Helene could pass directly over. Georgia, the Carolinas, and Virginia have joined Florida in declaring states of emergency.
If it is not necessary for you to be on the roads during and after this storm, please try to stay home.
The region will face increased flash flooding and tornado threats as Helene bears down.
The worst of Helene's winds are probably going to feel that storm surge, which covers a broad area. It will make it difficult to get into the worst hit communities even after the storm moves through. Back to you.
Well, those are our partners at the Weather Channel there telling us about what the impact was like up there in the Big Bend region.
Well, we've just a little bit past midnight now on Friday morning, right? We're here on Friday.
It is Friday.
Friday morning. Courtney Robinson alongside Dave Wagner here on 10 Tampa Bay. We're in Tampa at this moment, not in our normal studios in St. Pete as we've evacuated, and we are seeing with you what Helene has already inflicted on our area, and really what's to come in some of our counties as well. One of the areas that I'm kind of focused on right now is Anna Maria, and I know Bobby's got that. Yes, the Holmes. That's what I was wondering. Okay, so we have a phone interview from Holmes Beach Police. Is that right?
The police chief here in Holmes Beach. Chief, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can.
I appreciate you being with us. Dave Wagner along with Courtney Robinson here. I know it's a very tough time. I'm sure your resources are stretched thin. Can you talk to us? You've had a number of water rescues there. Can you tell us what happened, what you've been involved with there?
What's happened is that people disregarded the notice to evacuate. And then when the waters got high, and they got a lot higher than anybody expected, we have probably 5 foot of storm surge. We have 22 inches of water in our garage. Our high-profile vehicles, our Tahoes that are on the parking lot, have water up to the mid-door. So people didn't expect to have that much water, and they disregarded the notice to evacuate. And then when the water started coming into their homes, now they're calling for us to come and help and rescue. So there were some people that we were able to that had kids, so we were able to go and retrieve them and bring them to the fire department. Luckily, the West Manatee Fire and find a countertop or something high, since they were on the first floor units, and just hold on, and we put them in the queue for when the storm allows us to reach them, because the storm is too high for even our high-profile vehicles, our military surplus vehicles that we had that we're using with the Manatee Search and Rescue.
And Chief, I mean, you just said, right, you have almost 2 feet of water in your station.
In our garage, yes. Not in the actual. Didn't make it into the building itself, but in our garage, we have 22 inches of water in our garage.
Wow, Chief, do you have
and
any?
That's going past the door dams that we had installed.
Do you have any idea how many calls for rescue that you've gotten?
I would say that we probably received somewhere around 15 or 20 different calls throughout the day from people that did not pay attention to the warnings and did not adhere to the